Good morning. It's DJ and PK in the morning here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you all are doing well on this Monday morning. Plenty to come on today's show. We're going to be talking a lot about the Utah Jazz. We'll also be talking about the BYU head coaching search when it comes to their men's basketball program. We're going to be joined by Britton Johnson as well as Mark Durant, two of our old friends. We'll get to those later on in today's show. But we want to start you today by taking a look back before we look forward at the Masters. Bob Casper joined DJ and PK yesterday to talk about Scottie Scheffler's win at Augusta. Here's part of that conversation right here on The Zone.
Do you think picking Scheffler this year was better than picking Scheffler 2 years ago? The answer to that would be no, Bob. Thank you.
Well, it was the first one, but Scheffler is the number one player in the world, and it was still a good pick because golf is golf ball.
All three of us would have picked him, so there's no doubt about it. I think we need to mix up the picks. I'm tired of picking third. But
you're relegated to third, buddy.
Relegated? I still lead with 5 majors. You are Tiger, and I am Jack. So get off my back, you stupid golf hack.
Oh, wow.
That escalated quickly.
See, I told you, there's just no living with him.
So 3 ex-wives will say the same thing.
Yep. So 2 missed cuts you had, Wyndham Clark and Victor Hovland.
I sucked this week.
Patrick Cantlay and Joaquin Niemann finished tied for 22nd, and John Rahm tied for 45th.
Yeah, well, at least I didn't finish last like your pick.
What, miscut?
No, Harman. He literally finished dead last.
He had miscut, just like you two of your guys.
But he finished dead last.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's a miscut.
He finished dead last. Harman gets the first pick in the PGA.
I racked up a ton of FedEx Cup points, too.
Right, but you're like Pope going to Kentucky, man. You had the first pick.
DJ.
I wanted to know the FedEx Cup.
You got a second place.
I did.
Yeah.
He looked up the guy. He'd never heard of him. He didn't even know how to pronounce his name.
Doesn't matter. I just recognize talent and swings, PK.
You had no idea until you read it that morning.
You discover, guys. I discovered him.
Guess what I'm doing right now?
Playing golf.
I am hitting a drive on the 10th hole at Palmetto Country Club. This is where some PGA Tour players, when they're here. You hear that?
It sounded pure.
Now, did you have your head pinned against your shoulder holding on to the phone when you did that?
No, I did not.
I know, but that would have been more impressive. I know technology saved you.
NBC gave me the idea with their playing through that they have on television. Right during the middle of the round, guys are talking to them on the on the phone with the headphones. So, what'd you guys think about the Masters?
I thought it was a dominant performance by the number one player, and there's something to be said for being the overwhelming favorite and winning the freaking thing, not necessarily going away, but comfortably enough. And it begs the question, we've had Rory, we've had Spieth, we've had others, Dustin Johnson. Is he going to be able to be the closest thing to Tiger?
Well, 2 years, he's got 9 wins now in 2 majors. That's pretty good. But the thing about Scottie is he just kept his head down and kept plodding along, and he had guys that were chasing him that really had a difficult time because they didn't want to meet yet in Aubert and Max Homa.
Yeah, but even a guy who had one had just a nightmare ninth hole. I mean, that's behind a tree and 2 swings out of the trap. That sounds like the average hole for me.
Well, even he said he tried to get too greedy. He tried to get up there and hit a shot that was going to be right at that bunker on 9 and get it up onto the green. But, when it all comes down to it, he made 2 double bogeys in his final round, and that's what shot him out of the event. But, the interesting thing came, on the back 9. And we always talk about the back 9 at Augusta, that it all comes down to the back 9 when it's close. And Scottie He makes birdie on 8, 9, and 10, makes a bogey at 11. But Aubert hit it in the water, left on 11. Then you have Max Homa, so did Morikawa, and he made double. Aubert made double, and then Max Homa hit it over the green on 12 up into the ivy, and he made a double. So that kind of gave him the distance to finish. But you know what? He kept piling it on. He made a birdie at 14, par at 15, made a birdie at 16, and he ends up winning the golf tournament.
I thought that was the disappointing thing is there's been so much tension over the years at the Masters. And from the 9th hole, when I was definitely feeling it, right? It's a 3-way tie. By 12, I thought, well, Scheffler's got it at 12. Once, I mean, that was everybody's done with 12 going to 13. It's over. Scheffler is not going to – he just wasn't going to botch that.
Well, you know, the thing about it is that a lot can happen on a back nine at Augusta. And – you know, guys have 2 shots to lead, and it turns around, and they, a couple of guys make a couple birdies in front of them on 13 and 15, maybe 14, maybe 16, and then it becomes a whole different ball game. Kenny Perry was leading by 2 shots with 2 holes to play, and he bogeyed both those holes and lost in the playoff. So, you know, you just have to keep. You have to keep plugging along and keep hitting the shots that you've been hitting, and that's what he was able to do to be able to win the golf tournament by 4.
A lot of talk now with his wife going to be giving birth here at any point, and he acknowledged it. He's in for a different experience. I was listening to Faxon driving in, and he's talking about how the guy actually, he thinks that that's going to work toward his advantage because he has his priorities. Tiger, we know as he was dominant, was also somewhat of a mess off the course, and maybe that helped lead to his, I don't want to call it demise, but maybe some issues got in the way. And with Scheffler being so grounded, Faxon was making the point that he's able to play free because, you know, we heard him talk about afterward, I've already won because of the cross, and he was talking about the crucifixion and Jesus as being his savior. And so this thing here with the child won't impede anything because he's already got his priorities in order, and it helps his mind be free. I buy it, and so we'll see what happens, but 100%. Your response.
100% PK. His faith is a determining factor in his life, hugely determining factor. His family, parents, wife, everybody, huge determining factor in his life. Somebody asked him yesterday, you know, how's this going to change? And he goes, well, I got my family, I got Meredith, I got my son. He said, you know, golf's going to be about number 4 right now.
Right.
And so he was also asked, what's been passed on the best by your parents to you? And he said, you know, my parents always supported me in whatever I wanted to do, and they loved me, and they loved me. And he said, I just can't wait to be a parent now, because that's what matters in life is family. And he and his wife are going to be a parent here about the end of the month. But he flew home last night after his dinner with the members, and then I'll jump on a plane again and be back to Hilton Head on Wednesday for a signature event, and then he takes a couple weeks off before Quail Hollow, and then a week off before he gets to the PGA Championship.
So you figure he's good for another major this year?
You know, it's pretty hard to not bet against him. He just hits such good quality shots off the tee, off the irons. His chipping and his putting are coming around, and it's you can't not pick him in a major championship going forward.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think now we're going to just rearrange the rules a little bit. My territorial pick. I was born in New Jersey, so was Scotty Scheffler. That's who I'm taking.
Wow, Rahm and Scheffler.
Sorry. No, I traded Scheffler. You can have Rahm.
Sorry.
Nice.
Sorry.
Let's just remember. Bob, let's just remember.
Change.
He's going to complain, Bob, for years about me taking Ludwig.
Yep.
But just remember, that was
years?
my third-round pick. Oh, yeah, you'll bring it up forever.
He's second place.
Wyndham Clark and Patrick Cantley were his first two picks when he could have had Ludwig.
And I got 5 majors, and you've got 2.
Yeah, I do.
Does the phrase "shut the hell up" mean anything to you?
No, I got this microphone right here. I got a gift. I can talk.
So
I don't have a
PK?
gift of drafting golfers.
Oh, that, and you can lip
PK.
read.
That too. You're right.
PK,
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
PK.
Go ahead, Bob.
My
Go.
family lives in Austin, Texas, and that's where he went to college. So he's on my
What
team.
family? You live down there in Spanish Fork. What are you talking about? Or
My
Mapleton
daughter,
or someplace.
Her husband and 4 of my grandsons live in Lockhart, Texas, which is just south of Austin.
Oh, now it's south of. Okay, anybody who's from south of Austin, you can take. Not in Austin.
It's south of Austin, 10 miles.
Yeah, well, why don't you go south of Austin and go south of Houston and go south of Galveston and keep going if you get my drift.
Cancun.
You know what? DJ, methinks he protests too much.
I think you two are both spoiled. You don't want to earn it the old-fashioned way. You want it gifted to you as a territorial pick. Please.
Well, who brought that up? Not me.
Yeah, that was
I didn't bring up
PK's
territorial
first.
pick.
Yeah, that was
The whole
PK's first.
draft was me.
It's true.
That's right.
It's worked
It
out pretty
was.
well, too.
There's Bob Casper, part of Real Golf Radio. Catch that Saturday mornings here on the KSL Sports Zone from 8 to 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Coming up next, we're going to catch up with Keith O'Brien. Wrote a book on Pete Rose and baseball, and he thinks that the last real era of true Major League Baseball is decades in the past. Well, I'll allow him to explain next. I want to remind you guys that DJ and PK is proudly presented by our friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 18 years in a row. More in a moment right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back into DJ and PK here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Jake Hatch, filling in for this first hour. DJ and PK will join us here in just a little bit, but wanted to let you hear a little bit of a conversation they had yesterday with author Keith O'Brien. Recently published the book Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose and the Last Glory Days of Baseball, and why he believes that baseball, with the Pete Rose gambling saga, was inevitably, or I guess not inevitably, but completely changed when that all went down, and why it's been decades since. It's never been what it once was in his mind. Here you go. Keith O'Brien with DJ and PK right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Keith, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Before we get to the Pete Rose part, the last glory days of baseball, is that because of Pete? Is that because of not having a World Series in '94 and the labor issues and the ensuing steroid? Just the rise of the NFL? How do you define that?
Yeah, no, it's gotten really nothing to do with Pete exactly, except this, I would say. I think, in the last 35 years since Pete has been banned from baseball, we forgot, who he really was. We forgot what his scandal really meant. We forgot what baseball used to be. And the fact is, when Pete was banned in 1989, that was a real end of the age of the innocence, really not just for baseball, but for American sports. Prior to that, we had often been given as fans sort of a sanitized version of our heroes' stories, and that made them seem like pure heroes, but they never were. They never were. And with the fall of Pete Rose, it does feel like everything after that, especially in baseball, has just been one scandal after another. It's the strike, then it's steroids. Even in more recent years, when steroids have been, reportedly banned from the game, you've got cheating scandals regarding stealing signs and things like that. Everything is questionable, and more broadly than that, guys, baseball was just different in the '60s, '70s, and '80s when Pete was playing. It was much more a part of American culture and our American consciousness than it is today.
I was born and raised in a town called Parsippany in New Jersey. It's about just 25, 30 miles from New York. And so I played Little League ball and made the All-Star team, and we had a little banquet in the off season. And the featured speaker was a guy named Bud Harrelson. So I got to meet Bud and shake his hand.
Yeah.
I've never been able to just forgive Pete for that dust-up with Bud Harrelson in 1973. And no matter what you say here, Keith, is going to make me forgive him. So there's that. And I just want to get that on the table right off the bat.
You're talking about that epic fight during the 1973 playoffs. It's Mets-Reds. The Reds are highly favored to win the series, and yet in Game 3 they aren't. And Rose comes sliding hard into Harrelson. And if you watch the video of that, I mean, you'll see exactly what baseball used to be like. Rose comes into that slide like a runaway train. He throws an elbow as he bounces up. He hits Bud in the face, and it's on. But what's fascinating about that moment is it is probably the most epic postseason brawl Major League Baseball's ever had. Not a single person is ejected from the game. No one is suspended. Rose trots out to left field to start the bottom of the next inning, and he's pelted with trash and beer bottles, and in fact, even a whiskey bottle.
The whiskey bottle was mine. Twice. The whiskey bottle was mine.
I mean, it's a perfect example of just what baseball used to be. It was raw, it was dangerous, it was unpolished.
And yet now it's way more lucrative. But that isn't even the biggest thing. Can you imagine if PK had ever shook hands with Ray Fosse, what he'd be saying? In an all-star game, he basically wrecked a guy's career with the game-winning collision at home plate. And now it's ridiculous. The NFL doesn't even have their all-star game. They don't play it anymore. Basketball plays it, and no one can stomach it because there's no competition. And over here, back in the day, he was blowing up Ray Fosse at the plate.
Yeah, and that's a great example. And, in recent years, that collision in the 1970 All-Star game has been held up as like proof of like a character flaw in Pete Rose. But the fact is, that night when he plows into to Fosse to win the game, every manager on the field on both sides supports the decision. Future Hall of Famers support Pete's play. Joe Torre, Pete's teammate, and a catcher on the Cardinals at the time, supports the play. So they were trying to win the game. It was the bottom of the 12th. It was 4-4. Of course he's going to try to slide hard and win.
Yeah, get out of the way, Fosse. Jeez, if you don't want to get run over, get out of the way.
Then we got Bud Selig. Yeah, ended in a tie. It's everybody's playing with one eye on the money now, which I get. Well, but it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, right. And one reason why it's different is those guys weren't making that much. I mean, not in comparison. Everybody in 1970 was playing for the next year's contract. Nobody had guaranteed money. Nobody had a multi-year deal. And listen, I'm pro free agency. The system that was in place in 1970 was not fair to players, but the money that would come would fundamentally alter the game. It would also fundamentally alter our relationship with the players. They went from, earning a little bit more than the average American to earning, countless times more than the average American.
What'd you think of that social media post where somebody, I don't know who it was, but he leans to his left there, and Pete Rose said he wishes he had an interpreter, obviously with the Ohtani thing?
Yeah, it's a great line. Pete's referencing, if he'd have had an interpreter like Shohei's interpreter in Los Angeles, he'd be off scot-free. He would have gotten away with gambling in the 70s and 80s. And it achieved its purpose. It goes viral. But the thing is, guys, he did effectively have interpreters. Not someone actually translating the language, but he had an inner circle, Pete Rose did. These guys were the ones who were paying off his debts to bookies, driving around town with duffel bags full of cash. It was these guys in the 1980s who were placing his bets on baseball. So it's not really an accurate portrayal of how it all went down with Pete Rose.
True, but it was funny.
It's very funny. Classic Pete Rose too. He couldn't stay out of it. He had to inject himself into it.
In the book, you go into the relationship with Johnny Bench. It's easy to assume that there was a little bit of distance there because Rose seemed to have a lot of distance from a lot of people, but it was a lot more than a little distance.
Yeah, I mean, so, one thing we forget is that these two men weren't that close in age. When Bench arrives in town, Rose is already established as a star. He's a native son of Cincinnati. He's a two-time batting champion going into the 1970 season, which is really going to be Johnny Bench's breakout year. And, there was ego involved here. Bench was not just younger than Pete. He was taller than Pete. He was better looking than Pete. He was better spoken than Pete. He lived in a nicer house than Pete. And, Rose, I think felt threatened by that. And, nothing captures that sentiment better than something that Joe Morgan would say years later. Joe Morgan, future Hall of Famer, of course, it's traded to the Reds before the 72 season. And when he arrives into the clubhouse, Morgan said he was told that he could be friends with Johnny or he could be friends with Pete. He couldn't be friends with both.
What level of regret does he carry?
He carries a lot of regret. And I think that's something that, most people, I think, don't appreciate. He's lost everything. No one loved playing baseball or being around a batting cage or being in the dugout or being in a clubhouse more than Pete Rose. So forget about the Hall of Fame for a second. Forget about the money he probably lost by not being able to manage, by not getting sponsorships for those things. He lost the thing that he probably loved the most. And he lost it for the last 35 years. Pete's problem is that he is incapable of expressing those feelings and emotions that resonate with other humans. He simply is incapable of being vulnerable. He's incapable of appearing weak, and he was unwilling and unable to do the thing that could have saved him 35 years ago. The reporting in my book makes clear that if Rose was honest at the start, when he was called in first for a secret meeting to discuss his gambling, if he's honest about what's happening in his life at that point, baseball would have done anything it could to save him, to salvage him, to put him back together again. Because another thing we've forgotten in the last 35 years is that the Pete Rose betting scandal was bad for baseball in 1989, just as the current situation in Los Angeles with Shohei Ohtani's interpreter is bad for baseball.
For those of us who are old enough to remember, there'll always be a certain fascination with this because Rose was such a big star and it seemed to come out of the middle of nowhere and it was such a big deal. For people who are younger, who are thinking, how is this relevant to today? I think the thing I take away from it is the one difference between, and it's not a perfect parallel, but I think it's a pretty good parallel as far as a fall from grace, is Pete Rose and Tiger Woods. And they had some of the same issues, but they also had some different issues. And Tiger doesn't have the gambling issue the way Rose did, as far as we know. But the difference is when they were both caught in just a really bad moment and a really bad situation, Tiger did hold a press conference and just come out and say, I really messed this up. And I made a bunch of mistakes. And you look at where Tiger is now, he is beloved by younger players, and he is trusted by them because he's got them out there negotiating this deal with whatever LIV and whatever the PGA tournament is going to come into. And I think what you said about Rose loved the dugout and the clubhouse, well, then I think Tiger loves the practice range and the clubhouse and all that camaraderie. And the biggest difference I can come up with is that Tiger got out there and said, my bad. And it was humiliating. It had to be awful. But I think he's really benefited from that. And I don't see that moment for Rose. And then you describe this, and he didn't get that benefit.
I think that analogy is a great one. Tiger Woods is another American athlete who had that epic rise, that epic fall. But you're right. Tiger has a coda to his story. He's got, a sort of a third act, and that doesn't come for Pete. And so I would agree with you. I mean, one thing about the Pete Rose story and my book, Charlie Hustle, is that it is really is a universal human tale, and it's a cautionary one for us all. We all aren't going to be great athletes. We all aren't going to be famous. We all aren't going to be millionaires. But, we all make mistakes. And Pete made some grave ones and didn't handle it correctly when he did. I think the other reason why it's relevant, guys, is, gambling and our relationship with gambling is completely different now than it was 35 years ago. 35 years ago, most people didn't know someone who gambled on sports or gambled with bookies. Almost everybody knows someone who's gambling on sports now. And it is a very particular kind of addiction. And Pete Rose, the evidence shows, was indeed addicted.
Well, the book is out, and you can read more about this. Keith O'Brien with the book Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose and the Last Glory Days of Baseball. Keith, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Hey, thanks for having me, DJ and PK. Appreciate it.
There you have it, Keith O'Brien, author of Charlie Hustle, talking about Pete Rose with DJ and PK. I want to remind you guys that the KZNS Hercules Hero of the Week is here, my friends. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. It is all sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we'll finish out hour one of the program. You'll be able to hear from one of our favorites, Steve Cleveland. Well, there's an open job at BYU. Once upon a time, he manned that job. What does he make of the current search for Tom Holmoe and the rest of the BYU athletic department? He'll explain next, right here on The Zone. Good morning. It's DJ and PK here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you all are doing well on this Tuesday morning. We'll let you guys hear part of the conversation that David and Patrick had yesterday with Steve Cleveland. Now, the search for the BYU head coaching job for their men's basketball program is ongoing. Reports emerging last night that NBA assistant coach Kevin Young, currently with the Phoenix Suns, has entered the mix in terms of that open position. Chris Burgess, the Utah associate head coach, also in the mix, as well as a few other names, Barrett Peary, Quincy Lewis, and the like. Well, Steve Cleveland once upon a time was hired by BYU. What was it like to go through that experience for him? What does he make of the current search right now? Who would he favor as BYU goes about trying to find a new head man for their men's basketball program? Without further ado, here's Steve Cleveland with DJ and PK.
Steve, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Wow, we are right in your wheelhouse now, aren't we? BYU needs a basketball coach. How many people can talk intelligently about that and say, I did it. I sat in that chair, in that office, and on that sideline. Here's what you need. And I know things have changed. There's transfers and NIL. The game's always evolving, so it's different. But some things don't change. So if Tom Holmoe calls you and says, give me a little advice, you got something I need to look for that I might be overlooking, what might that be if you got asked that question?
Well, I think whether it's Tom Holmoe or whoever, I think you should be asking questions. And I think that, there's a list of candidates that are kind of out there publicly that we can have a conversation about. But I think if I'm an athletic director, I want to know everything I can about that individual, their family, where they're from. And most of these candidates, most of the community are familiar with because they have ties to BYU or they were here coaching in the community. But I don't think there's anything more important than talking about the individual, their character, their integrity, their where they at, finding out everything you can about that individual, how they got along with guys. If I was an AD, I'd be, obviously you've got a pool of guys that are here already that are in a staff, and then you have others that you're looking at. But I don't think at this point in time, as important as it is, you don't want to leave one stone unturned. And I'm not saying doing it in any kind of a negative light. It's just, here's the things you need to know and what you're comfortable with. And whether it's the family moving and making a big change to you being a part of the staff already, or maybe at one time you were part of the staff, all of those questions have to be asked. And it's not as simple as it might seem to the fan that, oh, yeah, this is the guy that should be the coach, because there's just a lot of underlying things that you need to be aware of. And a good AD like Tom Holmoe and all the people that are working with him, I'm sure Brian Santiago is very involved with him in this as well, that they need to be careful and just take pay attention to the details and making sure that everybody feels good about this. And I don't think it's rocket science. We'll probably talk about a little bit about it today, but you also have a number of young men that are sitting there wondering. Some of them put their names in portals, and so there's a lot of unknown. The quicker they do this, the better it'll be. I mean, if they're waiting much more than another day or two, it just allows these young people to kind of be wondering where they're going, and all of a sudden, players start leaving. I don't think that a young man or a player that's in the portal necessarily means they're going to leave. I think what it means is, hey, I don't know what's going on here. I better protect myself. I better be concerned about my NIL issues, where we're at there. If you're the player in the program right now, ask all those questions. I'm absolutely confident in Tom and Brian and making this decision and doing it in a timely manner so that they can move on and kind of rebuild the team again.
Yeah, I 100% believe it will be done later in the week. I've been told that, and I think that's what will happen for those very reasons that you just said. I wanted to talk about a couple of candidates. They don't really have what we would consider a quote-unquote BYU guy in the manner that Kalani Sitake was a BYU guy. There just isn't anybody out there who fits that not requirement, but just fits that criteria, I guess. But you look at, I think, in my mind, it's two guys in particular. It is Chris Burgess and Barrett Peary, who's an assistant at UNLV, has been a head coach and also has been in the coaching business for a good long time. And then I think Quincy Lewis will get a look. And so you look at those two guys as leaders, and I think people are a little vulnerable right now because Mark Pope left them. But Mark Pope, whether it was after 1 year or after 5 years, if the Kentucky job came open, he was going to take it, and if he had an opportunity. And that was just always going to happen. So you have to get over that. And I go of the Chris Hill mindset. I hire coaches who are going to be really good for our programs. And he did it in the two high-profile sports. He hired Majerus, who flirted with every job every year, and I think a lot of it was because he didn't have a family and he was bored, and that gave him something to do. And he stayed there for a number of years, and now obviously they have incredible success. And then he did it with Urban Meyer. The day Urban Meyer took the job, he was out the door. It was just a matter of when. But Urban Meyer, in just 2 seasons, brought them incredible levels of success. And then you deal with it. And then they hired Whittingham, who was a Utah guy, and he's been there for 20 years. So that worked, right? You look at Burgess. He's perceived as not being a BYU guy. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer because he was coming out of high school. Duke was the program, and everyone had stars in their eyes when you see Duke. And then when he transferred to Utah, you were just building the program, and you hadn't established to the level that you got it and all that stuff. So that stuff was somewhat not fair in the manner of, well, he's a Utah guy, and then he takes the job at Utah as an assistant because he got a big raise. But he has some BYU family background. Perry has moved around. I think you go with which one you decide, you go with that, even if they're not the quote-unquote BYU guy, because they're the best guy for the job in the moment, and that's what really matters.
I completely agree with you. I know everybody on this list, and I'm not here to give I can tell you a little bit about each one. I will just say this about Chris. I've gotten to know Chris over the years when he was at BYU and just having his brother in our program and just a variety of things. The things that I really like about Chris is, and now I'm going to talk about recruiting. Here's a guy that has played at the highest level in college. He's been a guy that's been in the, professionally played basketball. He's got a great family here in the community. he obviously was on that staff at BYU, and it may not have been a perfect world for him, but I have the utmost respect for him. I mean, when you're looking at someone that kind of checks the boxes in terms of fan base, in terms of an AD, he checks a lot of the boxes just because of all the experiences that he has. And like, I haven't talked to Barrett lately, but I mean, every one of those guys, other than Matson, who's going to be staying at Cal, they're all great coaches, all really, really good human beings. But I think a side note here is recruiting is a huge thing. And to have someone that has a national prominence, that has played at every level and has had success, I see that as being something that why an AD would hire Chris Burgess. Besides the fact he's a great human being, he's got a great family, they've been in this community for a long time. I think the transition would be pretty simple. He worked on the staff with Mark, and I know there were some issues there for a bit, and Chris decided to leave. But at the end of the day, in my mind, Chris Burgess is a guy that could step in, and there's lots to do and figure out, but I think that transition will be pretty smooth. Barrett Perry is a young man. I call him a young man because I've always looked at him as a young man to me, but he has had such a plethora of experiences as an assistant, as a head coach, nothing at a real significant level, but again, he's somebody that has been prepared for this, and he's been in programs that had a variety of different styles. I'm quite certain that if Barrett were be interviewing today, he'd talk about the plan that he has and how he would do things. And that would be a compilation of all the experiences he had as an assistant, as a head coach, all the things that he's done. He's not a name that's going to be real well known to the fan base, but, they've hired people like that before that nobody knew. And Barrett's plenty capable, has the capacity, knows everything about BYU, and he's another guy. And I know that Nick Robinson and that staff, I know that I've heard that he has an interest, and again, he has a different background in terms of how he got to BYU, playing at Stanford. And then Quincy, in my mind, I don't know that Quincy is the direction they would go, but I don't know that there's a better basketball coach in this state at the high school level or ever has been than him. And I mean, Quincy is just such a solid human being. I don't think it would be a hard transition for him. I think it would be overwhelming for him a little bit, but he's been on a staff. He was on Dave's staff for a number of years. That transition, I don't know if they go with someone of that nature, but if you're asking me if I can have somebody coach my grandchildren, it'd be Quincy Lewis. That's how much respect I have for him. I'll come back to the fact that my gut feeling tells me that what BYU needs right now probably more is a Chris Burgess than a Quincy Lewis or a Barrett Perry. But I tell you what, if any of those guys were hired, they'd have my full support, and I'd have complete confidence in what they've done just because of the vast experiences. I know when people out in the world were saying, we're not going to hire a high school basketball coach. Well, you know what? A lot of guys that are coaching Division I, and Quincy's had a lot of experience as an assistant coach at the Division I level. I don't think that transition would be that as difficult for him. It may be more difficult for the fans to digest, but it doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, you're trying to get the best person to do the best job and go get some of these guys out of the portal and bring them back and be passionate about it. And I think that's the number one thing. Get a staff and get everybody back in place. And if the guys are going to go to Kentucky, they go to Kentucky, and then you move on. There's a great core in this team. And I think that Colin Chandler is a big piece to that. And I think if you don't know, that Colin Chandler had quite a great relationship with Chris. And the concern was 6 months ago that Colin Chandler may go to Utah because Chris had such a relationship with him. I don't know if that's true or not, but you are talking about a head coach who their number one recruit and a guy that's going to instantly come into this program. And as soon as he gets physically strong enough and healthy and just back in shape, he's going to be an impact guy for BYU for a number of years.
When it comes to hiring coaches, I think Chris Hill had a big impact on PK and I because he was willing to say things off microphone and away from the notebook if he knew they would stay out of the public sphere. And so you heard a lot of like the logic of what went into why he did. And a lot of that logic worked. It didn't always work. Obviously, you had some basketball coaches. He wished, the hirings had gone a different way, but more worked than didn't. And so I'm wondering, and one thing he was very careful with is he really encouraged Urban Meyer to hire Kyle, but he didn't demand it. And I'm wondering how much Tom Holmoe should go to whoever it is. Let's say Burgess is the leading candidate. But if it's Barrett Perry, same thing, and say, I really want you to take a look at putting Quincy Lewis on the staff. Because there are a lot of people who have a lot of respect for what Quincy has done and who he is and how he handles people. But that, coming from a high school job to a college job, and the whole NIL transfer portal has changed a lot since he was there. But if you were on the staff, it would set you up for the next one because none of these people appear to be BYU lifers. And there are always going to be people who have a lot more money and who are better positioned to go to Sweet 16s and Final Fours and win national titles. So whoever takes it might leave. Personally, I don't think they should run scared from that. They hired a guy for 5 years. It went pretty well. The building's packed. The team's winning. And he got a chance to go to Kentucky. Great. That's the way it goes. So do you think they should really put an emphasis on bringing Quincy on board on the staff? Not make them, but strongly encourage whoever they give the job to.
I think that when you start looking at it, I think one, and Nick's in the program, and he has a relationship with all the guys, which is important. Chris may know a few of these guys from a few years back, but listen, I'm a huge Quincy Lewis fan, so you're kind of preaching to the choir here. And I don't even know if I haven't talked to Quincy in a while, and again, I just know him as a human being and as a wonderful coach. And if I wanted somebody to have a foundation, if it's something he's interested in, he'd be one of the first phone calls I make because he just knows this community. He's an outstanding coach. He's an X and O guy. It seems like that there are going to be a few changes with the staff, and we'll kind of see how that all plays out. But if there's an opening there, I would love to see Quincy and Nick Robinson stay in the program because of their ties and because of the relationships they have and just the experiences they had. But whoever the head coach is, they're gonna have impressions and they're gonna have thoughts and feelings. But I love your thoughts on that because I feel the same way, and we'll see how it plays out. And being all of these people whom I have pretty good relationships with, you hate to say anything that would be harmful to any of them because that's not my intent. My intent is for them to hire, Tom Holmoe and Brian and that administration to hire someone that's going to immediately have a positive impact on the program. And all this energy that they've got going in the Big 12 and all that momentum, that can be continued if you do this quickly, get the right guy. And, some of those people that are in a portal right now, I don't think Waterman's in the portal. Robinson, I've heard lots of things about him going to Kentucky, going to the league. I don't know. Saunders is another guy that's in a portal that I think really would love to stay at BYU, the right situation. You've got Nell coming back. I really am high on Dawson Baker, who was hurt last year. Dallin quickly put his name into the portal. I know he's got a great relationship with Coach, and he may well end up at Kentucky. But a guy like Traore, who's going to be a senior, even Atiki now is back on the page. I mean, he's been in that program long enough. I don't know the new guys, Isaac Davis and Brooks Barr. I know they're three-star type guys. They're not probably going to have an immediate impact, but I think Colin Chandler could. And I just think that you got Saunders and Colin Chandler and Dawson Baker and Nell. You're probably still needing a point guard if Dallin leaves, but there's a lot of guys out there, and a lot of you can go get a couple of point guards and make that thing work. So, and I honestly, I think I don't know how the head coach what they'll run, but I always kind of like a really athletic point guard who break people down off the dribble and just could attack downhill, could attack off the ball screens. And listen, Dallin Hall is one of my very favorite people. I got to know him well when he lived as a missionary in Fresno. But if he's made that decision to leave, then your highest priority is let's find one or two really athletic point guards that understand the system. That would be my first priority in terms of rebuilding this program after you get a staff. And they may not finish the staff immediately. I remember putting a staff together And the first thing I did is went to Hutchinson, Kansas to see what JUCO guys there were, because I was most comfortable. That I'd been in that environment for so long. But the priorities will be certainly to get a staff put together as quickly as possible. But, once the decision is made who the coach is going to be, that whole transfer portal thing is going to be something you got to be on top of. And then now you also have, where is the NIL in all of this now? What have we learned? What has that administration learned about the NIL? What are the capacities? Does BYU have the capacity to raise $3 or $4 million for a basketball program? I don't have all those questions, but I don't know that you can just stay as you are in terms of financing the NIL and feel like it's going to just be okay and we're BYU. I don't think that works anymore. You're going to have to pay money. You're going to have to help get good guys in. And if you're not willing to really do that, then you're limiting yourself in terms of what your potential is and what the ceiling is for this program.
We know that BYU has different layers before a coach is announced. You went through it yourself more so than other schools. Could you take us through once they decide on a potential candidate, what they have to do beyond interviewing with the athletic director and maybe the president?
It was really. I had some really choice experiences with both Elder Perry and President Eyring, and I had ecclesiastical kind of interviews. And what's been interesting is that those two men were such a significant part of my life. And that's being called as a mission president, and President Eyring dedicating the temple in Indianapolis when we were there. And so I didn't know these men. I'm not sure I'd ever met a member of the 12 Apostles, but going up there, you're nervous, but they all had different. Elder Perry was an interesting guy. His philosophy was, I'd never forget this. He said, "I don't get it." I probably shouldn't be quoted because I'm out of context and I'll be getting a phone call from somebody. But at the end of the day, his heart was so good about loving basketball. I mean, I can't tell you, there are probably 20 or 30 times he came into the locker room and chastised me for, not being positive after losses and this and that. But he was such a mentor to me. But he honestly in his heart believed that it was churches on every corner and basketball being a sport that's loved in Utah, that anything could ever go sideways with that sport in this state. And I could feel his passion for it. Where President Eyring was a little bit different, but it was still, you're really nervous when you go in there. But I got really comfortable when I sat down there, and then I had a chance to see these brethren at other times as I coached there and when I left coaching. So it is different, but it's something that was really special for me. I never forget it. And I think, at that time when I met with him, I was pretty deep on the play. I was down at the bottom there. I don't think I was someone that they were even thinking about. I didn't know them, and there were other candidates likely to get the job. But that ecclesiastical piece is real. And I had experiences at BYU that were really difficult for me with the honor code. And thank goodness a lot of that has changed. And it's just done with more insight, more compassion. But in the past, there were things that bothered me for a long time. It was really hard for me when you'd lose a player under circumstances and whatever the circumstance or situation was. And I'm not the only one that had that experience. Everyone does. But I do believe that what's happening in that institution is more inclusive now, whether you're members of the church or not, and that not everything's not black and white. Okay, that's not how the world works. It's not how you raise your kids. It's not what we do in any church. Is that we have compassion and we help work through those things. So that's a big part of it. I understand it much more than I did at the time, but it's still part of the really cool experience that I saw where young people changed and really became different people as a result of being in that environment as well. So I think for a coach, I think all of these coaches, whether it's Burgess, Barrett Perry, Nick Robinson, Quincy Lewis, they're pretty familiar with what's happening at BYU and what goes on. I don't think that learning curve is going to take very long. They have full awareness of that. So that won't be an adjustment for them. But, for Chris, he'll see things with a different lens, even when he was an assistant coach, and he'll have those conversations with Tom Homo and Brian, who oversees men's and women's basketball, and I think that transition won't be very difficult for any of them, nor certainly Chris, who's been in the program.
That is Steve Cleveland, former BYU and then Fresno State men's basketball coach. Coming up next, we turn it over to DJ and PK as they will have What is Trending, covering all the topics in the world of sports, getting you up to date on everything you need to know in all things hockey, basketball, football, baseball. We got it all next in What is Trending here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is What's Trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
I think the biggest thing is just be myself and have fun. And if I do that, I think the rest is going to take care of itself.
Caitlin Clark, the number one pick in the NBA draft, in the WNBA draft.
Did you say NBA?
Maybe.
He did. Might as well.
Because I was looking at the sheet here and it says NBA, Caitlin Clark. It's like, whoops, as soon as it came out.
That's because we need to have a separate category for WNBA.
Yeah, there you go.
Freaking sexist.
Give me a minute.
Or just simply the W, as it's called among us.
Ah, okay. Third worst record, and they get the first pick in Caitlin
This is Magic
Clark.
Johnson all over again.
There it is. Turn him around.
Yeah, I got
Make
the
it
fever.
happen. I think they only won like 13 games last year.
Oh, I know that's all they did. I got the W package.
Okay.
They're gonna be, my Phoenix Mercury, man. It's gonna be tough.
Minnesota took the Utes, Alyssa Peely, with the 8th pick.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I was watching that. That's awesome. Is she the best Utah player ever? Well, Kim Smith would like a word.
There you go.
I know Ben Anderson anointed Peely. Just pump your brakes there, Benny. Let's just hold on a second here. What are you smiling at?
Kim Smith's right in your wheelhouse.
Oh, plus, he was a great player.
No doubt. That's why the banner hangs up there in the rafters with the jersey on it.
Very true.
NBA play-in tournament starts tonight. Lakers and Pelicans at 5:30. The winner will be the 7th seed and head off to play the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs proper. The loser will go home and prepare to play either the Warriors or the Kings for the 8th seed. Warriors and Kings at 8 o'clock on TNT after the Lakers and Pelicans at 5:30.
This is postseason for me, man, and I'll be watching. It's you go through this crap of a regular season. If you've lasted, then you've got to be committed to this.
Have you made it this far? It's getting better now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now it's on.
We're not worried about guys sitting out tonight.
I assume if they sit out, it's legit.
Right.
At this point. So we'll see. I mean, the big names, obviously, you got 2 Hall of Famers, minimum, with the Lakers and Steph Curry, obviously, with LeBron. So what can happen here? Could potentially be other Hall of Famers on the other opposing teams. They've got some good players, too. These are all decent teams.
All these teams won at least 45 games. So
right.
They've done some damage
It's not
this
like
year.
the other side with losing records.
The Bulls and the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
so it's that crap. That's ridiculous. This is a joke. I'm going to go out clubbing tomorrow night.
The Brooklyn Nets are reportedly set to hire Sacramento Kings assistant coach Jordi Fernandez as the Nets' new head coach. He beat out Phoenix Suns assistant Kevin Young, among others, for the job.
Yeah, that's big with Kevin Young. We'll get to that. Keep your eye on Kevin Young because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about him in about maybe 30 seconds.
The United States Olympic basketball team will have LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid headlining the star-studded roster. Others expected to make the squad include Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Jrue Holiday, Bam Adebayo and Tyrese Halliburton with one roster spot still open. Grant Hill and Steve Kerr will figure out how to use that final spot later.
I don't know about Anthony Davis and Joel. These guys are hurt all the time. Are you going to get hurt now?
Davis actually had back spasms yesterday, so back to the playing game.
I think it was
tonight.
2 days ago he had them.
I think he's going to, I think he's going to play, but you never know. Because you're right, AD gets hurt a lot. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
BYU men's basketball coaching search continues on. Formal interviews with the candidates expected to begin today. Chris Burgess in the mix, along with Barrett Peary and the aforementioned Kevin Young. Coming up on the outside.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Kevin Young right now. I think that this is what I believe. I haven't talked to Tom Holmoe personally, so I cannot verify it 100%, but I believe he was on the road yesterday, and so I'm assuming that's in Phoenix, and that I was told that they're trying to close the deal at about 11:15 last night with Kevin Young. So, and I can tell you that Peary and Chris, as of about 4:45 yesterday, had not been contacted. And that's, well, I'll just leave it at that. So
that's a little bit of a sign there, if you parse that, right?
But maybe they spent yesterday with Young because he's with Phoenix. The timing's a little awkward, though. He's on the staff. He's associate head coach. He's getting paid $2 million. Supposedly, it's the highest paid assistant in the NBA. I know that Ishbia throws around money like candy at Halloween, so maybe that doesn't mean as much. But they've got an older roster, up way over the cap, with all this apron crap that I don't care about. He's paying out the gazoo. So the point being, they're in win now mode for sure. And
they open the playoffs against the Timberwolves on Saturday.
You have your associate head coach leave, and there's already a report here that Colin Chandler's out. He's going to Kentucky.
He's told 24/7 Sports he's going to go to Lexington.
How can they get in touch with him? He's on his mission, man.
Called an email.
Well, then he wrote, if that's the case. Yeah, so he's gone, according to whoever Travis Branham is. Colin Chandler has been released from his NLI, that's National Letter of Intent, is headed to play for Kentucky. So that's a major, major blow because we've heard all about him. So I think that maybe they'll have an announcement today, tomorrow. They got plenty of work to do because their roster has been essentially stripped now.
3 guys in the transfer portal. Is that where we stand? Plus a recruit?
4 if you count Adams.
If you count Adams.
And some other walk-on.
Yeah.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
That day, is a day I'll probably remember forever, just because of how things happened for me here. Obviously, Coach Carroll, big influence on my career, helped me out a bunch when I came to this organization, and really, helped me, thrust me into this spotlight that I'm in now. And so, for me, it was kind of a, just a terrible moment, to see someone that I love so much, having to part ways with him. But that's the way of the NFL. That's the way things go, and very excited, for what we have here now and just the direction we're headed in.
Geno Smith on the new era with the Seattle Seahawks. Isn't it unbelievable that all these players and all these coaches are having all these off-season press conferences for the NFL? I mean, they just make themselves available. They're the NFL. They're number one, and they just sell and sell and sell.
You say that every year this time.
I know. And other people,
of course you know.
Other people talk twice a year. Or players are off limits for 5 months.
Are you taking a shot at any politicians?
No.
Well, you should.
Why?
Why? Because it's far more important than this nonsense.
It doesn't matter. That's what we do. This is the NFL segment.
Well, I live in real life. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I don't apologize.
No, the NBA is like the politicians. They just hermetically seal themselves away until they issue a statement.
What kind of seal?
Hermetically. I don't know.
What is that?
I'm not sure. It's a big word, though. It sounds really cool.
It do.
Yeah. Philadelphia Eagles extend wide receiver Devontae Smith's contract for 3 seasons. The contract's worth $75 million, $51 guaranteed. Play out the rookie contract before the extension kicks in. He's now the fifth best paid NFL wide receiver. The contract averaging north of $25 million a year. Raiders wide receiver Devontae Adams says he's content in Vegas. If I wanted to be gone, I'd be gone by now. This is where I want to be. Leave me alone. Definitive. There it is. For now. Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice and SMU Mustang wide receiver Teddy Knox are being sued in Texas for over $1 million in actual damages and $10 million in punitive damages by two people who say they were injured in a six-vehicle crash March 30 in Dallas that Rice and Knox were alleged to have caused before fleeing the scene on foot. They also face counts of aggravated assault, collision involving serious bodily injury, and 6 counts of collision involving injury, according to police. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
I would say, where are you uncomfortable maybe with depth at corner? Because I think I'm always uncomfortable with depth at corner. So if there's going to be a transfer portal, it would probably be at the corner position. Every other position I feel pretty good about.
Spring transfer portal window open today for athletes. There's Morgan Scalley, defensive coordinator at the University of Utah. The transfer portal is open, and he would love to grab a corner. The era of unlimited transfers being highlighted by Louisville running back Petty Boone, who is in the portal again just 4 months after he transferred from Toledo to Louisville after a 1,400-yard, 15-touchdown season at Toledo. So just drop it into Louisville, never actually playing a game, give him a little spring football and hit the road. Welcome to the 21st century, huh, PK?
In the world in which we live, what are you going to do?
Michigan staff member Denard Robinson, a former star quarterback for the Wolverines, was arrested early Monday for operating while intoxicated in a single vehicle crash in Ann Arbor, about a mile and a half from the Michigan football headquarters. He's been suspended indefinitely by the head coach, Sharon Moore.
Well, yeah, it's the offseason.
There you go. You say that every year at this time.
It's the perfect time to have a
Now you're supposed
suspension.
to say I know. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Pasquantino drills it deep to straightaway right. Grossman turns around. That's long gone. Vinny Pasquantino homers for the second straight game.
Now the pitch to Garcia, swung on and driven in the air to deep left center field. This is way back to the warning track. Hernandez, he is out of room and is gone. Goodbye. An opposite field 3-run homer for Luis Garcia Jr.
Line drive, right field, base hit. 1 runner's in. Everyone moves up 90. Cubs lead 3-2.
Swinging its club high out to the gap in left center field. It's driven well. It's driven deep, and it's driven out of here. Mitch Haniger with a 2-run home run.
Highlights from around Major League Baseball. Nationals beat the Dodgers 6-4. Dodgers have lost 4 out of 5, starting to look almost human. Padres have won 4 out of 5. They beat the Brewers with a 6-run 5th inning. Get the win 7-3. John Sterling, longtime radio voice of the Yankees, retiring effective immediately. 85 years old, joined the Yankee broadcast in 89, famous for "Here Comes the Judge" and "The Yankees win."
Yeah, I have this belief that play-by-play guys and the local sports columnists, they die on the job. They literally don't retire.
Squeeze out every day they can.
Yeah. I mean, Chick Hearn died on the job. Sterling, 85 years old. Al McCoy last year at 90. Vin Scully. What's his face?
Did Vin go to 90? I think he did.
Yeah, and who's the Bob Uecker is still calling home games at 90. Jim Murray, legendary sports columnist, died while employed with the Los Angeles Times. Your guy Woody Page is pushing 80. They don't quit. They can't give it up.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
And going.
I think it's great, but it's also kind of sad.
Michael Busch homered again. That's 5 straight games. The rookie, equaling the franchise record. Throw him in there with Hack Wilson, Ryne Sandberg, and Sammy Sosa. Some legendary names. And Christopher Morel,
Who does he play for?
Michael
Bush. Just told me he hit home run.
He's for the Cubs. He's a Cubby. Well, he joins Ryan Sandberg and Sammy Sosa. Thought you'd know they were Cubs. But he's a Cub.
Sammy Sosa was a White Sox. Ryan Sandberg was a Philadelphia Philly.
They were Cubs.
And they also were those other teams, too.
Hack Wilson, Cub.
Hack Wilson?
Yes.
Legendary St. Louis Brave.
He just made that up. It was the St. Louis Browns, the Boston and Milwaukee Braves.
Right, before they moved.
No, you made it up. St. Louis Brave. You just collected some random bits and pieces. Salt Lake Bees open a series against the Reno Aces tonight. Smith's Ballpark, first pitch, 6:35. Tony Parks will be on the air at 6:20 here on The Zone. DJ and PK.
Yotes Watch.
Arizona Coyotes plan relocation to Utah for next season has been approved by the NHL's executive committee. The vote now moves on to the entire board of governors, comprising all 32 teams.
Yeah, man, up in Canada, they're excited about this. I was on one sports show yesterday in Edmonton.
Sports 1440, right?
If you say so.
I saw him tweet out about it.
I think you're driving around Edmonton in a rental car.
Yeah, I made a quick trip up to Edmonton and came right back.
That's what I thought.
And obviously, they would be excited or be interested in it. I don't know if they're excited, but they're certainly interested in it. See the ramifications. Yeah, and all indications are it's coming down Thursday or Friday. One day versus the other doesn't make any difference. I know that Channel 5 is sending folks down to cover their final home game. So, spending money to go ahead and get a jump on it.
Sam Farnsworth's going down.
Sammy Farnsworth, the kid grew up practically on ice.
Probably. Not.
I know when I was going to ASU, I had a lot of ice.
That is what is trending. There are your headlines. Coming up, Britton Johnson at 8:30, Mark Duran at 9 o'clock. We'll talk to them. Britton, of course, knows some of the candidates here for the Utah for the BYU job, even though he played at Utah. And Mark Duran, of course, played at BYU and is now the BYU basketball radio analyst. We will talk with them about the coaching search coming up. The question of the day is next. We will get to it. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Last thing I'll mention on this about the future of BYU basketball. Dallin Hall, Utah, born and raised, returned missionary, and even he's in the transfer portal. Like, BYU cannot take for granted that there's just going to be kids of the faith that want to just come to BYU and play. You're in a bigger game, man. You got to have to play the transfer portal and the NIL game, even with LDS kids, because we're all human beings, and we all need to have money to make a living. We all have goals and dreams. If you can't provide what other places can, those kids will go where they're being provided.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hot Takes or Toast brought to you by Sigford and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. So, PK, after the show yesterday, we put up a poll question. Who should be the next BYU men's basketball coach? I feel like based on what you heard in the last 24 hours, we need a new poll question. Chris Burgess ran away with 60% of the vote. Over 600 votes. But now, updating the search. You were just telling us in the last segment, from what you've heard, you think Kevin Young, strong contender. This is moving along now.
I do, yeah. Let's see. How do you tell what time? Well, it was after at 10:38. I fired off a message. So is it going to be Young? I understand Tom and others are in Arizona, and I got back someone who I trust explicitly or implicitly, whatever the word is, trying to close it. So there you go. I can't report that it's an absolute done deal because I don't know personally that it's an absolute done deal, as I did last week when I was told earlier, and I sent you a text, negotiations are ongoing. And then about 20 minutes later, I got another text that said, negotiations are over. It's done. So I put that out there, and it was done. So it looks like I think reading between the lines that if Young wants it, he could have it. Now he's with Phoenix. The timing is a little awkward. We talked about that because they're getting in the postseason. So I don't know how that's going to be ironed out. Does he stay there? Does he put together a staff? And I don't necessarily think the Suns are going to have a super long run. Maybe they can surprise us. With Grayson Allen now getting $70 million, maybe he'll be fired up.
You'd like.
I would be.
You'd like to think it. He'd be fired
shot
up.
46%.
Yeah, he had a
three.
great season, no doubt about it. And apparently he could have got more, but he wanted to be in Phoenix. He's been like he's taking the Van Horn route. He's been moving all over the place for a halfway decent player, and he really blossomed down there in the desert. So I don't think they've got enough, but maybe stranger things have happened. They certainly got enough name power on that team. So we'll see. But how does that work? Because you got to get going. Because for those of you just joining us, the report is that Colin Chandler's out. That Kentucky. If you ever thought Mark Pope was a BYU Cougar, you're kidding yourself. At no point. He was employed by BYU and he was drawing a paycheck. But Mark Pope is Mark Pope. And that's who he'll always be.
Mark Pope Incorporated.
Yeah.
Offices now have moved to Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah. He is a one-man hype machine. And, boy, some of the information that I had found out yesterday, going back to the Rose era, there was a lot of dumping on Mark Pope. But, I mean, a lot of it, I didn't know specific details.
But it just confirmed ballpark stuff.
Yeah, but I've known specific details, so it doesn't surprise me. He would take your grandmother if it helped him. He would. Now, of course, I'm so competitive, I'll beat my grandma on checkers.
Check that cliche. Got that one.
There's the box.
There's about 20 cliches we have to check every morning. That's just one of them right there.
And so I think that's where we're at. And as of Monday afternoon, I can tell you that Burgess, Peary, and Quincy Lewis had not been they were contacted originally, hey, I'll be in touch, but they hadn't been set up for a formal interview. Now, I think that should happen, and maybe it'll happen today. Maybe they got the invites last night, but this is about 5 o'clock. And, man, I went to the gym at like 12:15. 2 o'clock, I was still in my freaking car.
In the parking lot, hadn't got into the gym?
No.
Somebody returns a call, and then you think you better return that text, and then there's one more call you should make, and then another call came back.
Multiple texts, 3 phone calls.
Yep.
Yeah. Going back and forth. Yeah, true story. And we were having work done at our house. We got a freaking leak in the wall, and I was supposed to be there, and I wasn't. And so my wife ran home for a little bit from work before she went off to her other coaching assignment. I've been doing this thing for freaking 40 years. Literally. I didn't say this, but I just remembered it. It was freaking 40 years ago on Monday that I started at the Casa Grande Dispatch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just thought of that. Yeah.
Look at you. Let's get PK a cake.
I want balloons for my birthday when I walk in. Amanda gets a big thing. Jeez.
We're no Amanda, so let's get what we get. Let's keep moving.
As we walked in downstairs, so we all saw that this morning. So, it's but business calls, and you got to go, and this is what I think is going to happen. And I think BYU, the roster's been rated, and that sucks. But I do think they can get a competent coach. I'm very confident of that. Whether it's Burgess, Peary, Kevin Young. I don't know Kevin Young at all. I know Ryan Smith knows him, and if you don't think that's important, you're kidding yourself too. That's extremely important. Money man. Yep, it matters.
He has power.
Yep.
He has connections. The money will give you the connections.
Well, yeah. Money gives you pretty much everything you want. It gives you all power. I mean, I suppose it can't buy you happiness. I have no idea. I have not been in that situation. That's what we hear. But he has influence. And when the Suns were here, I was told he went up to Kevin Young, either, because they have this lovey-dovey stuff after the game. Maybe it was before the game. And he said, hey, KY. So he has a relationship with him, and he has a vested interest in BYU sports. We know that. And nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it is.
Seen him in enough games. We're all sure of that.
Fine. And that's fine. He went there. Yeah. He's from here. And he's talked openly about his passion for the Jazz. And I think he does something. Does he probably give some money to Utah, much like the Millers did? I don't know that. But, he has influence there, and away they go. And this young guy, 42 years old, he was born here, went to school, college and high school in Georgia, got into coaching. I think he coached the Flash when they were in Utah, and then they went over to Iowa. He coached there. So he's been around, and he was a finalist for the Suns job last year, and then went to Frank Vogel, and he was the lone holdover. He was on Monty Williams' staff, and they all got dismissed, and he was kept, which usually means if you have a situation where a coaching change is made and someone is retained, that means they value that person maybe a little bit more. And Ishbia, who the new young Suns owner who has money coming out of his ears, paid him the $2 million, more than $2 million, made him what they say. I don't have the salary structures of all the assistants, but he is the highest assistant coach in terms of salary, and BYU is prepared to match that, is what I heard. So right now, and it could change, man, because we all thought that Drew was going to take the Kentucky job, and that ended up Pope. And they fire the coach at SMU, and it leads to Colin Chandler changing his mind and going to Kentucky.
Dominoes falling everywhere.
Yeah, and that's a major blow for BYU. There's no other way to spin it. If this kid was supposed to be all that. I never saw him play. Not watching much high school ball. I'm watching more than I ever watch now. One school in particular, because of personal relationships. But that's a major blow.
He's a top 50 recruit. One service has him at 33rd, and
And if Hall, Saunders, and
got guys
Khalifa leave,
you got guys in the portal. So can they be re-recruited?
Yeah, and I think Saunders, Creighton is already they throw around money.
Came and got Ashworth.
Sort of the
out of Utah State.
Minimum is like $200,000, but I think BYU can pay $200,000 to a kid like Saunders. They've got $3-4 million available to them to be able to handle that. So they got to go quick, man.
We asked the question about who do you want to coach BYU basketball, and Kevin Young was off the radar, so no one really responded and went down there. But to the issues you're talking about, lots of people responded. Lane Scott, Burgess. I'm hoping his connection to current and future players would be a plus. Hold the roster together, hold the recruiting class together, but we already see that going in the other direction.
Yeah, I was also told that BYU is interested in a little bit longer term than next season.
Makes total sense.
And I think you have to be. You can't get caught up in some kid and what the kid wants in the moment.
And what if he's great and he's all that and okay, and then he's one and done and off to or two and done either way, and then off to the NBA?
Yeah,
or the transfer portal. It's really risky to build around that. Caleb Post, whoever can keep Chandler at BYU.
Well, that's nobody.
The answer is nobody, and to just base it on one player. I mean, the best players aren't going to be there very long.
Right. All these kids, the three guys that are in the portal, are not freshmen. So at max, they would be there 2 years. And with the transfer portal, it is just available to leave at any point anyway. So you can listen to what these kids say, but I don't think you can base your decision on. You got to go with what you think is best, and that's Homo. And as I understand, even the university president was in Arizona yesterday. That's been reported, not by me, but I saw it out there. And Tom, they went down there to, as somebody told me, at 11 o'clock last night, to close the deal. Take that for what it's worth. I'm throwing stuff out there. If it comes back to bite me, and I've done that before, and it came back to bite me,
so be it.
Yeah.
You're scarred now. You're tougher. Skin's leathery.
Well, I had no idea that thing would blow up the way it did. And when I just was saying what somebody had said, I thought that was okay without being a fact. If I put it out on Twitter, then like I did last week with Pope is going to Kentucky, like I did with Slovis is going to BYU, that's another story. But I haven't done that yet. Yeah, what the hell? I'll do it anyway. No, I won't.
No, you won't.
I'd take that too seriously.
It is weird trying to analyze how someone who's been in the pros, whether it's the G League as a head coach, well, actually, G League as an assistant and a head coach with the Stars, or in the NBA as an assistant coach, how are they going to do in college? There are examples of people moving back and forth between the college and pros and being good, but there's also examples that that's a big hurdle and it doesn't work. Well, there is that too.
Do you have any guarantees?
There are no guarantees.
So, so you can go back and forth. I mean, Kentucky's betting a huge amount on somebody who has 0 tournament wins. He's lost 2, and the most recent was an embarrassing loss.
Duquesne, the 11 seed.
Yeah, that was inexcusable.
Sneaking in the tournament.
Right. They shouldn't have done that.
Should have been a W.
Right. And and that's on the players and it's on Pope. So, and that's who you're getting at one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country. You can't get anybody with more experience than that. So they're taking a major risk. I mean, Pope is a lot of style to that guy. You know, I literally told the bosses at BYU, why do I feel like I got to have my hand on my wallet when I'm around them? They can verify that.
Because he's always selling.
Yeah. Yeah. And he called us up and he wanted to send limos to pick us up when we're at UVU.
Yeah.
You made up the excuse, well, I got to work. I just said, no, I'm not interested. I told the truth. You don't want to hurt feelings. I'd just as soon tell the truth. I wasn't interested in doing it. I got so many nights I got to watch the Jazz and the other teams. And
Utes and Cougars and Aggies.
Right. So if I get a night off, I don't normally want to go watch basketball. That's what I do for work in the winter, many, many nights. And now it's going to be hockey too. My nights, if you want me available in the winter, see me around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got plenty of time in the middle of the day, but I don't have a lot of time once we get to like 6 o'clock.
Getting 80 hockey games on top of everything else.
And that's fine. I love doing it. I'm not complaining. It's just those are the hours. They're great. I love it. I love this job. It's a dream job.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We'll see where this goes. It needs to go somewhere very quickly. We've all known that for a while. Here it is Tuesday, and there'll just be more schools swooping in, trying to tempt guys to go into the portal and make the jump. When we come back, Danny Ainge scheduled to speak with the media today. What can he say to give you hope? We will get to that next. Stay with us.
The NHL is coming to Salt Lake City.
It's about time.
I have been waiting decades.
This is huge news.
As Utah prepares to welcome the National Hockey League.
This city has long deserved a second pro squad.
The Zone will have all the coverage from every angle as we'll be with the new team every step of the way. From every moment of the offseason right up to when the puck hits the ice in the fall.
A new era in Utah sports.
Your home for the best coverage of the NHL in Utah is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is Van Halen, brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com.
I get up, and nothing gets me down.
Danny Ainge scheduled to speak with the media today. What can he say to give you hope?
Oh, Ainge had a busy day yesterday.
It's hard to believe that this would be moving along without some input from Daniel R. Ainge, right?
Are you talking about the BYU thing?
Yes.
Yeah, but also he had to do the exit interviews because Jay-Z's got some health issues.
Other than that, nothing going on.
So I know he had a long one. Which makes sense that he would have to do it.
That's obvious. That's not any breaking news by any stretch. And even if Jay-Z was there, I'd want Ainge to be talking to those guys. Yeah.
Exactly. So what can Ainge say today to give you hope? A lot of bitterness here, PK. A little bit of comedy.
Well, in their internal documentary, I guess, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if that's the right word. He talks about wanting to give the fans hope. Those are his words. I mean, those internal things are, you're not normally going to get grilled on them. And I'm not going to say they're puff pieces, but they don't let guys like me have one-on-one access.
So somebody might put themselves on the record in an interesting way.
Yeah, and so he wants to give the fans hope. Okay, all right, I got hope.
Daniel, that he's getting fired. Sam, that he's quitting/retiring. Tyson, there are only 2 words he could say to give Jazz fans hope. I quit. Ben, he could announce.
I quit?
Ben, he could announce he's going to the Lakers front office. That got 10 thumbs up.
And ruin them? Is that the point?
That would be the point, yes.
Okay.
People are down after 2 years. That's what we're getting here today. This is turning into a therapy session here for people to let out all their frustration.
Yeah, I mean, there is a dichotomy there.
Yeah. Here's a list of things that isn't going to happen today or that will not be said today, but you can post it if it makes you feel better. Jason, fire Ainge. Dan, less hope, more championships.
Is that Miller Lite?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. That was great taste, less filling. And they'd hire all the ex-coaches and star athletes
they're bringing
to chant.
it back.
Oh, they are?
Because I saw a commercial on that the other day with it was J.J. Watt and somebody else.
Donnie, I've accepted the offer to coach BYU. # take note.
That ain't happening.
That ship has sailed. Tony says, on a more serious note, that they have a plan.
Well, they do. They do have a plan.
Alan says, just give me an idea of what the plan is going forward, if the plan comes together.
They're going to draft and develop.
All the dudes who want Danny Ainge to resign, who is the genius you're going to replace him with? I'm glad you people are not making any decisions.
Austin Ainge.
So Alan takes a slightly different tack from all the people who had to let their frustrations
I would actually love
out.
to see Austin Ainge working for the Jazz. He's got a brilliant basketball mind.
And he cracks you up.
Yeah, well,
he will walk by you at a game and say something funny and make you laugh.
He's a sharp guy, basketball-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he always was. He was analytical as a player. He'd love to talk strategy, sitting in airports or wherever, hotels. Yeah, he's been training for this literally his whole life.
Larry says Danny Ainge isn't going to say anything we haven't heard before.
That's possible.
This is what is going to be said. We have a plan. If we feel there's a player out there that we think can help our team, we will do whatever we can to bring him in, but we don't want to lose our flexibility. We're building for the future. We have a great young coach and good young talent, blah, 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 blah.
I agree with that up to the blah, blah, blah. It would be funny if he just
literally said that word for word.
Yeah. I went with the blah, blah, blah. But I think that they do have this plan, and the intent is to draft and develop. Much like University of Utah football. They don't draft, they sign. But it's essentially that type of thing. They sign and develop. And they've done it very, very well. They're great at it, actually. And so it's the same thing here. Speaking with some Jazz folk yesterday about what the plan is, that's part of the plan. That they are going to use these picks to draft and develop. So, yeah, from that perspective, it's going to take a bit. I mean, there's no other way around it. But that's the plan.
Now have the guys who develop and explode onto the scene.
Yeah, explode. I don't know that I'd go there. Because I just don't know that any of these rookies are capable of exploding without the seasoning. Unless maybe they went with the foreign dudes who've been pros for 5 years before they get to the NBA. And the classic case that everyone's going to point to now to the end of time is Doncic. But if Europe is running around with
multiple
50 Doncic's, then that's the hotbed of basketball. It doesn't seem likely. Doesn't mean they can't develop into good players because they have. You look. I was going to say Sabonis, but he played a year of college. But that's the kind of guy that you want to draft and then develop because you can go check it out. I don't recall us being wowed by Sabonis his first year out of Gonzaga. I'm wowed by him now.
He was a nice pick, but it wasn't what he became.
Yeah.
I mean, he really blew up after. I mean, he got better in Indiana, but he really seemed to have more impact on winning once he got traded to Sacramento.
You wonder if they'd make that trade. Because, he's an outstanding player. And I can argue that if you were to acquire his services today, he'd be the best player on the team. He's really good. But the point is, it took a little time.
The Joker took time. Antetokounmpo took time. Luka Doncic is the one who came in and was hitting game winners pretty quickly.
Right. Amazing. Right from the start. Even Dirk coming over, one of the early foreign superstars, right?
First guy to be the best player on a championship team, but that was a decade-long journey with huge roller coaster and first-round exits.
Yeah, but I mean, they were not winning because of him. He was the first-round exit. He was MVP, if I remember. He was a great player. So that's the direction you're going to go.
Work really hard for 5 years so you can be an overnight success.
It makes sense that if you read the tea leaves with all the draft picks and everything, that's what they want to do. And I think you have to grade them. It sucks that they've lost. We all get that. But the picks right now, certainly you'd give them all three at their various levels a grade of a B. With the but the grading period's not over, because it could drop.
Yeah,
if somebody goes out and becomes a knucklehead, but it could rise too.
Right, they've taken quizzes. They haven't even gotten to the midterms yet, let alone the finals.
But we look at it and all right, I see something there. I see something there. I see something there.
I see why they were drafted where they were.
Yeah. Well, they were available. You can argue that George should have been gone higher, and maybe even Sensabaugh too. I'd have to go back and review all the draft picks, which I'm not going to do. Doesn't matter anymore. But if these kids busted here in the next few months, and maybe we'll see some of it in the summer league. I assume at least Sensabaugh and Hendricks would play summer league. Neither of them played last year. I'm not so sure about if George needs to be there. If they want him there, great. I want to see some development there, and then I want to see some development in October. I don't want to see stagnation. But I'm not expecting every game to be great, because that puts them at a whopping 21 years of age. And come on. All those banners that they've got at Delta Center, what were every single one of those kids when they were kids at 21, what were they doing?
Playing at Gonzaga and not making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So
finishing up, I guess, at Louisiana Tech.
Don't forget your Iowa State Cyclone.
There it is.
You always overlook Hornacek. I always have to bring him up.
UCLA Bruin.
Yeah. Notre Dame.
Dr. Duncanstein might have had his NCAA title and been a rookie. I think he played.
Okay, what was he doing in the NBA? That's what I'm getting at.
Missing the playoffs. There was no lottery then, but essentially in the lottery.
So all those guys, great players, legendary players in the franchise, had to grow into it. It's painful. Sure, it's painful. I get it. But at the same token, time goes by fast, and we are going to wake up, and it's going to be 2030. I'll be dead, but you'll wake up. I'll be gone. So
you're going to outlive me.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Your family genetic history suggests that you will outlive me.
Yeah, but I got other things. So we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there under Ryan Smith. But it's tough in the meantime. I get it. Especially if you're a fan. It's easy for me to say. They win, great. They lose, I go to bed, same. Yeah. Nothing doesn't really matter to me.
We didn't grow up with the posters on the wall.
And now, when I first had the radio job, I wanted them to win because, oh my gosh, ratings. I still care about it, but I don't think my job is hinged upon the team doing well.
It's different now.
If it did, I would freaking be right there with the Jazz cheerleaders. Give me a J, give me an A. I mean, yeah.
Come walking in, and there's the Jazz cheerleaders on the concourse. As they take the ticket, and there's PK.
I would, man. But I don't think it matters, job security. My job is to just report on the team and offer opinions as I see their games. And you got to be objective too, but at the same time, I want to provide hope. I don't want to come in here and just say, you people, what are you doing, man? You're wasting your time. This franchise is the Clippers of the 80s. So settle in.
It's going to take years to get to that. Clippers of the 80s were also the Clippers of the 70s and about to be the Clippers of the 90s.
But when you're winning 31 games and getting your brains beat out, that very season looks like a Clipper season.
It does feel like it in the moment.
Yeah. And that's where fans live. They live in the moment.
And that's the thing. Yeah, they don't have the big picture. Nor should they be expected to necessarily.
They have it, but they don't want to ponder it. This team means a lot to so many people, and that's cool. And it's great. It's great that these people are saying Fire Range rather than, I don't give a crap.
Welcome to Detroit or Atlanta or Charlotte.
Suck. That's not what we got here. That's why it's fun to work here.
The places that Will Hardy was referring to, although he did not name them because he'd be crazy to name them.
Yeah, of course.
But we all knew who he was talking about.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and right now, BYU basketball fans, they're sort of grieving as we speak. Word this morning, Colin Chandler going to Kentucky. Mark Pope, yeah. You can win here, and if you win here, it's like any other place, man. It is so special. Ah, shut up.
Got to sell. Hype it up.
I don't have to buy.
That's true, you don't.
You can sell whatever you want. And I knew that's what it was from the start.
I was going to say, nor were you ever buying.
No. Right. Yeah. And he's taking your best player. Is your highest recruit since Sean Bradley? Did they have recruiting services? They had recruiting services, Sean Bradley, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And he probably as high, if not higher than Bradley.
And Pope just stole him from you?
Stole him, yes. Stole him.
Yeah. Just
thefted.
Yeah.
Thieved.
I'm going to get my little doll of Mark Pope and put needles in it.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Stay with us. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Britton Johnson, former U basketball star Mark Durant, current BYU basketball radio analyst. They know some of the candidates. We will talk with them. Coming up, stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Golfers, don't miss the UNA Golf multi-vendor demo day happening this Saturday at Mulligan's Golf and Games. This is your chance to try out the new releases from all the major golf manufacturers and register to win free prizes. It's all happening this Saturday at Mulligan's Golf Courses. UNA Golf, unmatched service, unmatched expertise.
This morning sucks.
Why is that?
No Colin Chandler. I was looking forward to Colin Chandler. People say, well, Colin Chandler.
It's not exactly how that goes, but I see where you're headed.
Now, BYU fans, we got an open mic. What do they do, Yak?
They go to the app.
KSL Sports app.
KSL Sports app.
Down lower left corner of it.
Down lower left-hand corner. Okay. Come on.
Hit the button.
Hit the button.
That little thing you can record up to 60 seconds audio.
How much does it suck that Mark Pope, a guy you cheered your heart out for just 2 weeks ago, is now taking Colin Chandler and taking him to Kentucky?
Did you guys see the tweet last night that said it was only 6 weeks?
I saw that.
BYU
I was about to bring that up.
Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. Yeah,
Mark Durant tweeted out, wow, how things changed so fast.
Oh, yeah. And Sunday's the most important day of all of our preparation. Meanwhile, on Sunday, I'm holding a trophy in Rupp Arena. What are you laughing at?
You.
Sunday's the most important day. It's a day to reflect. I'm rich.
Let's reflect on you and what you said.
I'm going to reflect on $5.5 million annually.
He was already rich. Now he's richer.
Yeah. Now, by your standards.
What?
He's richer, sure.
He was already rich.
Yeah, but...
And now he's richer.
Is why I live in Utah.
He
was making a lot of money, and now he's making a lot more money.
Okay, now I'm really rich. Does that satisfy you?
I got a big TV.
Yeah. I should always back. When it comes to money, I back away.
You're the one who said it's funny about college basketball that everyone is so revved up in late February and early March. And then it all just comes to a crashing halt with the loss in the tournament. And that's all true, and certainly BYU fans felt that when the buzzer went off against Duquesne, a team they coulda, woulda, shoulda beat, but didn't.
Okay.
And then the coach leaves, and now the star recruit isn't coming, and multiple key players are in the transfer portal, one foot on one campus, one on another, waiting to find out who's the coach. Does he value me? Should I go over here because they value me here? Who's in charge? What am I doing? It's all turmoil. And I thought when Mark Durant tweeted that out yesterday, and it was just 6 weeks ago, that they won in Kansas and everybody was on top of the world. And now look at it.
And you can't get any higher.
And I thought of you saying, that's the nature of college hoops. Every year people are super revved up, late February, early March, and then it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, this is a major stingation. BYU fans, how you hanging on? Where are you?
I'm in San Bernardino.
I'm in a Scipio.
I'm in a deep state of depression related to BYU basketball. That's where I am. These are major blows. Colin Chandler, he's out the door to Kentucky. Now you're already rooting against Pope. Now you got to root against Chandler. Hope he bricks every shot. Or hope he does okay but doesn't get a lot of time and then comes running back.
Nice. Bounce back.
Yeah.
Bring him on home.
Well, that's a possibility. Anything
sure.
really is. So, don't close any doors, that's for sure. You never know what'll happen. A lot of these kids that have left have come back over the years. So you got an opportunity down the line. But this is a major blow. If I'm a BYU fan, I am sad right now. I'm furious that Pope leaves. And, and he just, a few weeks ago, he was preaching how the Sabbath was a glorious day, and that was contributing to a great deal of their success. And you don't think he's going to practice on Sunday at Kentucky?
I think we got our first clue when they held the big old rally on Sunday at Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know that he was responsible. Said I got to have it on Sunday.
Everybody was work on Monday.
And in order to get 18,000 people in there, you probably had to have it on the weekend.
Have to have it on a weekend, right? Yeah. All right, Yak, you already getting people sending in the open mic? You go to our app, use the open mic feature, and you can send us your hot takes. Sean, here's his take on the BYU men's basketball search.
Mark Pope and Colin Chandler are dead to me.
Short and sweet.
Yeah?
Unless Colin Chandler transfers back later.
Well, okay. Well, there's been somebody else. I'll just leave it at that.
It's called the resurrection.
Yeah. I didn't want to go there, but Yak can.
Yuck.
I got close, but pulled back.
I'll jump over the shark.
Yeah. So there you go, man. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
You're in or you're out. You're either a Cougar or you're not.
Right.
You move on. Good night.
These guys, yeah. And he's never even going to play a day for you. And now he's gone. Jeez, man. It's a major blow. No doubt about it.
We got the new poll question up. We had one up yesterday on who was the new coach going to be, and Chris Burgess had 60% of the vote, was pulling away. So we put the new one up because we didn't have Kevin Young in yesterday. Today we have him in. Burgess now with 50% of the vote. Kevin Young with 26.5%. Other 12 and Quincy Lewis 11. I left Barrett Perry out because he was in third place yesterday. He was behind Quincy and Burgess.
Peary, not Perry.
Peary. Peary, my bad.
Well, hey, I wouldn't sleep on Burgess either because guys have said no. I believe that the BYU administration went to Arizona yesterday to try to seal the deal.
And now Kevin Young's got to think, is this a good enough deal and a good enough opportunity that I can walk in there and tell the Suns right before the NBA playoffs, I'm out?
And I wonder if you're saying that, too, or you're also closing the door on becoming an NBA head coach.
Well, this is a guy, you mentioned he worked in the G League, D League. He's worked 15 years in the NBA at this point.
Right.
The comparisons to Alex Jensen are pretty clear.
Yes.
Good coach.
Even more so than Alex.
Been on the pro track big time.
Yeah,
hasn't
Alex
really been on
college.
the college track.
Alex,
he coached in college.
Longer
he
in
did
college.
do the St. Louis thing with Rick Majerus.
Kevin worked at Oxford College here in the States and one season at Utah Valley State, which is now UVU. That's all he's done in college.
Right. So he could be closing the door. I don't know. I mean, who knows? He's 42 years old. It doesn't seem like any door should be closed when you're 42 years old. But it could be real. And maybe he's comfortable with that. Maybe this is a head coaching job in the Big 12. I'm taking it.
It's a good job.
Yeah. Right.
There are people who would rather do college, there are people who would rather do pro. What does he want to do?
Well, I know like Alex Jensen, I don't think Alex wants any part of this transfer portal and all the nonsense and the NIL that has to go into it. If you're going to do that, just go at the pro level. You know, where you can – we heard Chip Kelly talking about he just wants to coach ball and he didn't want to do all this other stuff, so he's going to just be the coordinator at Ohio State. Well, at the pro level, that's essentially what you're doing. You're coaching ball. You know, you got to recruit maybe a little bit with free agency, but that you just, here's your cash. The green does the recruiting, and everybody knows, is that a good situation? Can I flourish? Matt Harpering, his college coach Kremen, said, go to Utah. I want you to go play for the Jazz and Jerry Sloan. So he said, okay. And it worked out for him, right? So you want the situation. You want the cash. You want the good situation. In the colleges, it's so much more than that.
And the thing is, if you're a coach and you really value listen, I know how to build you into a good player. I know the building blocks and what you have to go through. But it takes time. And at college, it's 1-year commitments, or in the case of the Louisville running back, now it's a 4-month commitment. And that would be frustrating to invest in a player and have him take off when you can see. And I think you were standing there. I mean, they don't want it out there on public. They waited until the microphones were off to share the story. But they're frustrated with players who they can see. You're on the path. You're going to get there. And they take off before they get there. And I invested so much in you. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. And in the pros, certainly in the NBA, which is what we're talking about with these two guys, well, they signed their rookie deal, so they're going to be there, and you can work with them, and they can see the progress, and they're going to stay. But you don't get that guarantee in college. They take off.
Now more than ever.
Yep.
Because there's no penalty.
Nope. And we were sharing it earlier this morning. 4 months at Louisville for Penny Boone, running back who had 1,400 yards at Toledo. Transfers at the end of the season. At the end of spring ball, he leaves Louisville. That's got to be frustrating if you're a coach. Investing in people who just can't sit still and don't have the time to build something. They're on their way to the next thing.
Right, especially when you're 50 years old and you have perspective and you can cite 50 examples off the top of your head.
and somebody sees themselves as a third stringer and they're like, dude, you're going to be the starter. You've got it. You're building. I can see it. Yeah. And they're gone and you're like, okay.
I've had conversations with Dave Rose sitting down in his office about the new office at the new building about that very thing and how it frustrated him. And that was when guys then had to sit out. But they still did it unless they got a waiver. Now, they don't even have to worry about it. And these were guys that you look at what Dave Rose did. Dave Rose was excellent at developing players, provided they stay in the program. You can't develop them if they don't stay in the program. He developed guys. There's a slew of guys that I wouldn't be able to even name by the time they were juniors and seniors were significant contributors on really good teams. Teams that won NCAA games. And now they take off. So all that stuff Kevin Young has to weigh. And I have no idea what he is thinking as far as that goes. But I do believe that the administration went to Arizona yesterday with the intent of getting him to say yes. But if he doesn't, and they go with Chris Burgess or Barrett Peary, great. Bring it on. Away we go. Because who's to say either one of those guys, or if it were somebody else, couldn't just hit it out of the park? Because the stuff that Mark Pope had in his program to get them to be competitive and beat nationally ranked teams multiple times last year, the individuals may go away, but the structure of the program is still there. You're still going to get 17,000, 18,000 people there. You're going to get a great rowdy student section virtually every game. All that passion is still there, and it matters to kids. We talk about it. They're games. You're still playing in the Big 12. So there's a lot of stuff that is positive about the program that whoever gets the job can build off of. Today's a bad day in BYU basketball. This has been a bad week. I understand that. But it doesn't have to be permanent.
The roadmap is there. He left the roadmap behind on how to win, and everyone can see it.
Yeah. I mean,
recruits.
Dave Rose and Steve Cleveland had it too.
Yep. Well, they weren't playing in the Big 12. So people could see what they did.
No, but it was a good
then.
basketball league that they played in.
It was.
Before
good.
They went to the West Coast.
It was good in the Mountain West, right?
Yeah.
But also that's ancient history to 17-year-old recruits.
Well, but it's better now. Yeah. So it's not like you need to talk about that day.
Nope. You can point to last year, and this is what you can do. Come to BYU and do this. I mean, if you even want to keep some of the offensive principles that were, a lot of people complimenting the Cougar offense and how it worked and how that guy's easy buckets. I mean, it's all on film. You can copy that if you want. Go with your own stuff. Mix the two depending on what players you have.
Right.
But you have to go get players. And the sooner they get to work, the better. And I don't think that I get why you say it, though. The Kevin Young, if he takes his, I don't know that he's slamming the door on being an NBA coach in the future, but it definitely
he may not be, but the NBA might.
It can definitely derail it, and the NBA can definitely look at you, and then we say the NBA like it's just one thing, right? There's 30 different clubs, but some of them may look at you differently. Some of them might still be interested, and some of you might be saying,
and they very well could be.
Right.
If he comes here and really kicks some booty, he has a lot of NBA contacts.
Right.
And so he didn't play in the NBA, but he's been in the NBA for a good long time now, to where if he takes the head coaching job here and in 5 years has won 3 NCAA tournament games or whatever and got a Sweet 16 appearance, that very well could get him back. So it's not like he's necessarily slamming the door shut.
But it's
just a possibility.
It is derailing. You're taking a different track there. Doesn't mean it can't loop back and get you to where you want to go, ultimately.
Well, if you do like Billy Donovan and win 2 NCAA titles.
Yeah, that'll get you there.
So, but I mean, if he's got the recommendation of Ainge, I think Ainge's voice in the NBA carries a lot of weight. It clearly carries a lot of weight at BYU. And so if he is, and guys he's worked for, Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, all those guys. So he's got contacts. He's got tons of relationships now. So maybe it's not that big of a risk, but you were a finalist. I heard he's a finalist for Charlotte and Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, they're going to go with Fernandez. You're not going to be a finalist next year. You're not going to be a finalist this year. You could be an NBA head coach this very year.
Could happen. You don't know. And
right.
so
But if you take BYU, it's not going to happen.
You're delaying / derailing that.
What is your dream?
Right.
I've never spoken a word to the guy.
Nope. I don't have any idea what he's thinking.
I may go down to Phoenix today.
You're just looking for an excuse to go to Phoenix. I mean, it's still April. It's a good time to go.
Right. It has nothing to do with Young. I go to
go to the pool for a few hours and then ride it off.
Scheduled to be there in 2 weeks. Might be something.
This needs to be resolved by then. He needs to be up here by then if he's the guy. Whoever's the guy needs to be here by then.
Oh, yeah, but that's an interesting dilemma, though. Would he be here by then, even if he took the job?
Maybe he feels that loyalty and owes it to the Suns to stay there for however long their playoff run goes. It starts Saturday, is game 1 with Minnesota. First-round series are notoriously slow, but it could be over in a week and a half. Or they could win in advance, and it could go 2 weeks, and then another series is 2 more weeks. Right. Yeah, just winning one series turns it into a month.
Right. And the Suns went 3-0 against Minnesota this year.
If they have all their guys, their record's great.
Yeah, you never know about them.
Nope. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Britton Johnson joins us next, former Utah basketball star, and he knows he's got a relationship with at least one, but I think as we're about to find out, knows a little more about some of the other candidates as well. We'll talk with Britton next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
He is a columnist for ArizonaSports.com. He's also the co-host of a midday show on 98.7 FM in Phoenix. Dan Bickley, where's the community at on this? I mean, are they fighting to keep the Coyotes?
There's a small group of very, very loyal hockey fans who have stuck with this hockey franchise throughout a couple of decades of this. But you have to understand, this relocation game has been a part of this hockey team for almost 2 decades now, and people are tired of it. I think most casual sports fans in Arizona just want resolution. You would have to have lived this on a year-to-year basis to understand how exhausting all of this has been to the common fan. And while I think there was a point in time in our history as a sports market that being a big league sports town, having all 4 major professional sports was something of value, I don't know if that's any longer the case.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to see Blue October at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 24th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. DJ and PK, it is time to welcome in Britton Johnson, former Utah basketball star. Britton, good morning.
Good morning. What's up, man?
You're back, baby.
Former Utah star, but former radio star. Once used to do radio with DJ and PK, but never gets asked anymore.
Except you're being asked right now, so shut up. Oh, wait, don't shut up.
Tell
You're
me,
supposed to do interviews.
PK, tell me your ratings plummeted since not having me on anymore. They've had to.
Well,
There's no possible way you guys, no one listens to you anymore.
I pay to do this job. I don't get paid.
Last time I asked you to make a media appearance, you said no.
Hey, hold on a second. The best story ever happens to me this morning. I'm driving my 12-year-old to school, and I tell her I'm doing radio, and she says, "Are you doing radio with the guy that used to always scream in the mornings and sing songs?" That's her memory of you, PK, because I don't think that was DJ she was talking about.
I talk passionately, so sometimes the volume raises.
Yeah. Well, it is just wonderful to hear your voices, guys. It really is. I'm delighted to be here.
We wanted to talk to you about, what are the ins and outs of what makes a good cheerleader?
Oh, gosh. You mean, let's go that route. All I know is I finished my last cheerleading competition event in Phoenix, and my daughter said, "We're done. I'm good
sweet.
to be done." And I literally had an internal arena of people cheering on, where on the outside I kept it cool. I was like, "Are you sure that's what you want to do, sweetheart? Are you sure?"
On the inside.
I'm sorry, but children's cheerleading traveling competition, it is like the death of our society. It is honestly like the worst thing I've ever been a part of in my life.
Now, wait a minute. Let me pull up the Majerus stories. Let me check.
No,
worse than?
I would take another year with Majerus and have him be 100 pounds heavier and twice as mean than go and hang out with all these cheer parents. I'd rather have a Greyhound bus run me over, back up over me, than go and hang out and do this cheer thing. Sorry. If you guys just lost a few fans because of that, you didn't want those fans anyway. Trust me.
Shoot.
All right, let's get to the heart of the matter then, shall we? We thought there's a chance that you have, we're sure you've interacted with a candidate for the BYU coaching vacancy, and there's a chance that basketball being the small world that it is, that there's more than one candidate that you've interacted with or know something about. How deep is your knowledge of Chris Burgess, that's a given.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, the fun and extremely unique part of BYU is that your candidates get narrowed down real quick, don't they? I mean, the fact that I have people texting me, "Are you going for the job?" and I don't respond. Well, you're a moron. I haven't been a coach, but they realize that you have to find an LDS player or an LDS coach. I think it even has to be a very active LDS coach or something like that. I don't know what the parameters are, but nonetheless, I think the names get narrowed down real easily for everybody because of the dynamic of it. So I know of Chris, PK, you told me there was the name of the Phoenix Suns assistant coach.
Kevin Young?
Kevin Young. And then obviously Mark Madsen. I've talked with Chris, and Chris is keeping that. I think that's no surprise that option very entertained and open. And I think he wants to be a head coach. I personally don't want him to leave the U because we need him as a fan and as a former player there. And the guy is a phenomenal human being. He's a great coach. He's an awesome recruiter. You couldn't get a better person to go into somebody's living room or in their house and just make them feel confident that he would be taking care of them. So if BYU gets him, they're, in my opinion, they're getting the best that's out there.
I've interacted with Chris since he was 17 years old, right? So we're going back a long time. Yeah. And, I followed him from afar, and then I was working for the newspaper when he came back and played for Utah. And he had some humbling experiences, and I don't know how much that shaped him. You would know better because you're a better friend of his than I am. But I think that all these experiences has really made him to be a relatable guy. And so if he were to get this BYU job, I think he would do extremely well because he's somebody who's a relatable guy, and he's so easy to talk to. And if he gets in your living room, he's just going to blow you away. How much do you think of all these things that he's been around this world chasing this basketball has helped him become the person that he is?
Well, I think you're just spot on. I mean, he's gone through experiences where he's been the number one talked about player in the country in high school. I mean, you're talking about a McDonald's, class of him and Lamar Odom and Tracy McGrady. I so badly wanted to throw my name in there. I wanted to say me and just throw that in there just for fun. Side note, and this is my ADD kicking in, Tyrone Lue, my teammate in the Orlando Magic, one time told all of us there was a party happening in New York and we'd all want to go. And he said, well, everyone was like, who's going to be there? He's like, Jay-Z, Beyonce, me. And everyone was like, wait, did you just say me? And Tyrone Lue was like, yeah, I guess I did. Anyway, okay, focus, PK. Back to my story. He was the number one guy talked about in the entire country. And everyone thought he was going to be the next Christian Laettner at Duke. Everyone thought he was going to be the next phenom, Duke star that goes to NBA and has a great NBA career. And he dealt with a lot of tough moments at Duke, transferred, had his father kind of talk him into transferring and come to Utah. And things didn't go well there because of injuries. And Majerus, as we all find out, was not always the easiest player to play for or coach to play for when you had injuries. But then he had himself a really successful pro career over in Europe, traveled all over the world, but had a lot of, with that success, had a lot of ups and downs. And the guy has been able to, throughout all of that, kind of maintain a really fun personality. Like when you're around him, we have a text thread between myself, Chris, my brother Jeff, Nick Jacobson, Trace Caton, and a couple of the former coaches that dealt with Majerus. And it's one of the – my family knows if I'm laughing my head off, I'm on that thread. You know, when people see you laughing, they're like, yeah, let me guess, you're texting so-and-so. That's the one. He just has a ton of humor. And I remember when I played with him in college, he collected like Star Wars characters, like little, so he's just different. He can kind of connect with people in all different areas. He's an encyclopedia of sports and basketball. He just pays close attention to everything, and has a really fun side to him as well. So I think that, yeah, he just kind of covers all bases when it comes to being able to relate to people. If they're like, I know, and I just heard, you know, that the Colin Chandler kid transferred to Kentucky, but I know that, you know, when he would recruit Colin, he didn't even really talk about basketball. He found out what Colin was interested in. I think it was like the TV show The Office, and that's what they connected on. And Chris knew how to do that, and they laughed a ton. And then it was like, okay, and here's what I can do for you for basketball. So, man, BYU is going to get a phenomenal human being if he goes there. He's a great recruiter and an even better human. He's just a good guy, and that happens to really know the game of basketball as well.
Your former teammate Alex Jensen has been mentioned in this. Now his name's dropped out. I think most people think that he's a pro coach and he's not interested in college coaching, but that may be an assumption made from a distance. Can you speak to his desire to coach in college versus the pros?
You know, I think Alex really wanted the Utah job, and would have really liked to have done that. But, you know, there was a great option in Craig Smith at the time, and so I think it didn't work out. And so, but it feels like every time the BYU job has popped open and his name has been thrown around, he just hasn't really shown much interest. I don't know unless you guys know, I don't know that he's ever gone down and interviewed for it or even had a conversation with the athletic director. And so I ran into Al a month and a half ago. I was at a Dallas Mavericks game, and he just seemed happy. Him and his wife really like it there. And I think they sort of liked the change. I don't know that things necessarily ended well in Utah with the Jazz. And so I just think they're happy where they're at. And I don't see him entertaining that job. And if he is and he's down there interviewing, he's not telling any of us. So that would be a surprise to me.
Yeah, it does seem like he's very, very comfortable there. You know, you played at the college level and you played at the pro level. How much difference is there between coaching at the college level versus coaching at the pro level?
Well, when I played and there wasn't this NIL stuff and we weren't giving these kids millions of dollars, it was extremely different, night and day different. I went from watching college coaches, you know, you look at them wrong, say something wrong, and they could sit you, bench you. Majerus, you know, wanted nothing to do with you. And so you absolutely obeyed every command they had on the basketball court, what they wanted from you in the classroom, or you were shooting yourself in the foot. Then I went to the NBA and I watched a teammate of mine in Tracy McGrady walk off the basketball court because he didn't like the way the head coach was talking to him. And he sat on the sideline and put his head down. And then he started the very next night. You know, it was all about, I mean, it was just different. The players, I mean, and I think not every NBA team was like that. I think that it was very difficult. What I'll say the difference was, it was very difficult to build a winning culture in the NBA, where in college I think it was easier to build that because the players came in with more of a hungry, humble attitude. And then when you're in the NBA, I mean, I saw it firsthand with Orlando, and then I saw it a little bit when I was with the New Orleans Hornets, players who would talk back to the coach. I watched Baron Davis walk into our very first training camp meeting. We were in a high school classroom because training camp was at a high school gym, and we saw him come in 30 minutes late out in the parking lot. We could see through the windows, and he literally just walked into the school. And I'm like in my head, like, why isn't he sprinting? When we were late for meetings, you would sprint and dang near dive through the window so that Majerus knew you were doing all you could to get from class to practice. But I watched Baron Davis just walk like the cool breeze, and then he came in, sat down. Coach didn't say a word to him. I mean, I heard everybody else murmuring that, it was messed up that he was late. But anyway, so it was different then. I think that it's not as drastic in today's world because of this whole NIL thing and the way players are treated. And then coaches, if they look at players wrong now, they'll enter the transfer portal. Yeah. They'll go find somewhere else, or, somebody's offered them money. And so the second they don't feel like, they get their feelings hurt, they're gone.
I heard a story on at the NFL level when Bill Belichick was Bill Parcells' defense coordinator with the New York Giants, that Lawrence Taylor showed up 15 minutes late to a meeting. And so Belichick goes to Parcells and says, "What am I going to do?" Lawrence Taylor, best player, obviously, shows up 15 minutes late. How are we going to handle this? And Parcells says to Belichick, "You idiot, why'd you start the meeting then without Lawrence Taylor there?"
Yeah, you're kind of held at bay, right? It's weird. I'll never forget. We did an interview, or we listened to an interview with Greg Popovich, and he talked about the uniqueness of Tim Duncan and with his superstar, allowing him to yell at him and scream at him and kind of use any kind of tone of voice he wanted with him, because then if the superstar allowed it, everybody else would follow suit, right? And it created a culture there that no one was better than the other person. And I never got to see that. I spent a small amount of time with the Indiana Pacers, and I felt like that Reggie Miller was he was respectable and wanted to be coached, and he had a good relationship with Rick Carlisle. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, everyone, if you know me, and people do know this about me, I'm happy for all these young players getting this money. Good for them, but I don't think it's going to help them. I think it's ruined college sports. I think it's ruined the pure essence of players going to universities because they're loyal to them. I mean, I just saw Colin Chandler's leaving to Kentucky. I mean, of course they threw him an enormous NIL deal, is what I'm assuming. I mean, when was the last time you heard of players coming back from their church missions and two teams are sitting in the Big 12, great programs, great opportunities, and then boom, just like that, you're gone. So everyone's chasing the money now, and I feel bad if that's not the reasons Colin did that, because I really do like him and his father. They're good people. But I'm not a fan of it. I put on the spot the other day in a panel down here at Utah Tech University. Someone asked me, "What do you think of this NIL stuff?" in sort of a big group, and I probably wasn't the right person to ask, because I don't like it. I absolutely think it has ruined college sports.
Britton, we appreciate it as always.
Well, it's been wonderful to talk with you guys. I'm so glad I got to do this.
And you can tell your daughter that he didn't sing.
Yeah, are you still doing that stuff, PK?
Hold
singing?
Me now.
Wow.
Whoa, warm my heart.
Listen
stay
to that.
with me. Oh, won't you stay with me?
Okay, I'd rather. Okay.
Child of mine.
DJ, I changed my mind. I'd rather go to cheer camp than listen to that.
Nice.
Woo-hoo! You know I've been a real bad girl.
Yes. Oh, wow. Man, DJ, hey, we're all praying for you, man. Still.
Thank you. I can use all the help I can get.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks, Britton. There's Britton Johnson, former Ute. That's some of the guys who've been linked to the vacant BYU job. You're texting with people this morning, or at least trying to, PK.
Right now.
You got any update? You got any update, or should we do that on the other side?
I can tell you something about
we'll do that next.
Chandler.
All right, we'll do that next. Stay with us.
The NHL is coming to Salt Lake City.
It's about time.
I have been waiting decades.
This is huge news.
As Utah prepares to welcome the National Hockey League,
This city has long deserved a second pro squad.
the Zone will have all the coverage from every angle as we'll be with the new team every step of the way. From every moment of the offseason right up to when the puck hits the ice in the fall.
A new era in Utah sports.
Your home for the best coverage of the NHL in Utah is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK brought to you in part by Spa Trouvé. Join Hans and Scotty Friday at Spa Trouvé in Highland, located at 5455 West, 11,000 North, 110 North. Stop in and say hi as Hans and Scotty. We'll be broadcasting live from noon to 3 p.m. All right, you're texting with people. You got a little update. The BYU basketball situation. Fluid. Who will be the next head coach?
Oh, Tommy's crying.
Who will be on the roster? He says, ignoring PK crying.
No, this makes sense.
Okay.
So yesterday,
It's all going to tie together here, people. Hold on. Here it comes.
Yesterday, I got a text about 6 o'clock. There's frustration in the office about something. I don't know what it was, but I know Tom seemed pissed. And the upsettedness is calling. Now we find out.
Now we find out.
It's Colin Chandler.
Tom was upset that the former coach took the high-profile recruit away from BYU and got him a spot in Kentucky.
Yeah. Rupp Arena. What are you going to do, man?
I just got this. This is from from BYU fans. So let me get this straight. You spent 2 years of your life convincing other people to leave everything they've ever known and had in their lives to join your church, to make a commitment, a promise, and stick with that commitment forever. And then when the first thing you do when you get home is change your own promise and commitment you made to the very institution sponsored by the church you just represented. Now I understand.
I don't know that he's even home. Is he?
He is not. He's still got a few weeks left.
Right.
Well,
I was
that
told
detail in a reply.
I was told he was getting this out of the way because he wanted to be able to focus on the final run of a few weeks of his mission.
It's the fourth quarter, man.
Yeah.
Make one last push.
Finish strong. Sprint to the finish.
Where is he? Do we know?
I want to say England.
England?
And the finish line is now in Lexington.
Oh, man. I've never trusted anybody from England.
My relatives would be from England, in case you're not following along.
It's outside of there's a couple of guys, 4 of them that I trusted.
But not Pete Best.
Yeah, they're the most overrated band ever, despite what all the records say.
Colin Chandler serving in the London, England mission.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, it's a blow, man, but yeah. I like it.
But didn't we just see this with Utah State now? In this era, players come and players go.
Sure, but it's a blow in the.
It is. I totally get that. I totally get that.
One of your own.
He's a top 50 recruit in the country.
That you celebrated, and he doesn't bounce one ball for you.
One service has him at 33, and BYU doesn't get guys like that very often, and they thought they had him. So I totally get that.
And didn't Sean Bradley do it too? If he's doing it for the cash, Sean Bradley did it for the cash.
Bradley played a year, went on mission, then they were changing the rules with the draft, so he literally just entered the draft.
Right.
The salary cap was about to kick in on the rookies.
So he made the right decision.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
cashed in.
There's going to be a rookie wage scale, so he turned pro and got $44 million.
Ooh, good call, Sean.
Yeah, right.
I like that BYU's being crapped on. And what I mean by that, not that I'm crapping on BYU, is, man, whoever gets this gig, and Tom Homo and Santiago, man, they just as soon rip your face off. Santiago, it's spending 2 minutes with him. Tom's a little more lower key, but they still want to win badly.
Yeah, you don't have to be around either one of those guys very long to figure that out.
And like, okay, man, let's go show them. Get guys in here. I would think now this would rally the collective, and I know Tom put out a video on it, get more cash available for this. If that's the way you want to play, okay.
That is the way it is played. There's no, whether you want to or not.
But this is a kick in the boys, man.
Yep. But whether you want to or not, that is now the most important thing
Right, but it still rallies you.
You still have to build relationships. Oh, if this doesn't explain to boosters exactly what moves the needle, then it's not going to get explained.
Right. And so everybody's crapping on them right now. Let's not just totally count them out.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Mark Durrant, BYU basketball radio analyst, joins us. Stay with us. DJ PK, we're joined now by Mark Durrant, BYU basketball radio analyst. Mark, good morning.
DJ, good morning, my friend, Pat. Hey, always good to talk to you guys.
You cracked us up yesterday. 6 weeks ago in Kansas, Cougar basketball fans could not have been happier. 6 weeks later, a loss to Duquesne in the NCAA tournament. The coach leaves. And at that point, maybe you knew, the rest of us have since learned that the coach didn't just leave. He packed up the highly ranked recruit and is going to make sure he lands in Lexington for his freshman year, too. Ouch, how things have changed in 6 weeks.
Yeah, if you have any family or friends that are BYU fans, try and be kind to them today because it's been a rough couple of days, and that's the way it goes, and it hurts. It's hard to the juxtaposition of that moment against Kansas. I mean, that was a highlight for me as a BYU fan and broadcaster and former player. I mean, that was a pinnacle, and now it seems, at least right now, pretty low. Things change very quickly. BYU will get a new coach, and hopefully there's some excitement around that, and maybe that coach can bring in some guys to replace the guys you're leaving and get some excitement going. But certainly right now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody. It looks pretty dismal, and it's been a rough couple of days, but there's always hope, right?
Yeah. 6 weeks ago, all my troubles seem so far away.
See, now Britton didn't like your singing, Pat, but I like it, man. I think it's beautiful.
That's the difference between Utes and Cougars right there.
Right. Cougars are more loving. We've already known that.
And they'll lie to your face.
Yeah, we're kind of finding that out a little bit.
Yeah, we saw very nice, nice shot. When Kalani was hired, there was all sorts of enthusiasm, right? Because he was one of their own, and Lavelle Edwards had just built this national program, undisputed, and then when they went with a couple of guys who weren't really their own, and when Kalani got there, and you remember it very well, and all these players were on the TV show with them and everything, and ex-players, because, man, we got one of our own here. I don't know that there's necessarily one of their own for basketball that they could choose, so they're forced to go outside of the so-called family, even though most likely there's no written rule, but probably, very strong the guy's going to be an active LDS guy, and I get all that. Is it the risk you take if you don't get one of your own? Because it seems like Kalani, it really means something more. But at the same time, Dave Rose wasn't one of your own, and he gave you some good moments. Steve Cleveland wasn't one of your own. He gave you some good moments. And even Mark Pope clearly gave you some good moments. How do you balance all that?
Yeah, well, I think at least the older BYU fans kind of got a little spoiled with guys like Lavelle, that were just legends and lifers, and it was all about BYU for them. And unless you pick me as your coach, and I'd go in there and drive into the Marriott Center with a bus with the '92 WAC championship team holding my the WAC championship. The crowd,
on a Sunday, PK wants you to call it a devotional.
Unless you're willing to do that, which I just have a feeling Tom Homo and Brian Santiago are willing to hire me, you're probably going to have to go with guys that aren't necessarily BYU guys, and that doesn't mean that when they come that they are. I think Mark Pope was fully a BYU guy and was completely committed when he was there. And Dave Rose and Steve Cleveland. I mean, these are my good friends, and I love these guys. And but there isn't that deep river of fandom that I grew up in Holiday, Utah. My brother was playing, and I lived and died with BYU and Utah games, and and I wanted to play at BYU, and I did, and now I've been broadcasting for 27 years. I mean, it's hard to find that level of dedication in guys that are coaches and are trying to make a name for themselves and trying to get the next better and better job and more money. And I don't begrudge anybody for that, but that's the reality of it, that no matter who you get, unless it's that weird situation like a Kalani, you're probably going to be fending off bigger and schools that can pay more money and provide more opportunities. If you're successful, if your team's successful, that's going to happen to you. It doesn't just happen to BYU. It happens to almost everybody. There's very few jobs in college basketball that can, you're not worried about someone else coming in and taking your coach. So it's rough, but that's reality. And so what you've got to do is get some really talented guys and keep them as long as you can. And then, try and bring in another talented guy. That's just the way it is.
I get wanting to have someone who's a fill-in-the-blank name for whatever school, right? In this case, it's BYU, so a Cougar through and through, but it could be whatever school, whatever nickname. But you just brought up Lavelle Edwards as, an all-time Cougar, which he is, but he played at Utah State and is on their all-century team. So applying this logic when they hired him, the Cougars could have cheated themselves out of Lavelle Edwards, which the stadium's named after the guy. So, yeah, I get you want your own guy, but you can definitely take this too far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there may be a situation where you bring in someone that did not play at BYU and they just love it there and want to build a legacy and have success and be thought of as a Lavelle Edwards type, I guess. I mean, you certainly don't have to hire someone that's one of your own. Obviously, that maybe would give you a little more protection against schools coming in and taking your guys, like Mark Pope, Kentucky. They wanted to hire one of their own, but I don't think it's an imperative. I really don't. I mean, it's just the way it is right now, and all you can ask for really is that while they're there, they're doing everything they can to be successful during their time there. And I think Mark Pope did that, and now he's doing it at Kentucky, and he's going to do everything he can to be successful at Kentucky, and he's got a lot of pressure on him to succeed. So, he's willing to take players and recruits because he's not at BYU anymore. His loyalty now is at Kentucky, so he's going to do whatever he has to do to be successful at Kentucky. And so, you just want people to come in, and while they are with you, is to give you the best chance of winning and be devoted to your school. And then when they're no longer a head coach, whether they move on somewhere else or they get fired, then you get someone else that you're just trying to bring in someone that will, dedicate themselves to the success of the university. And I think it's going to be harder and harder to get the Lavelle Edwards types anyway that are going to stay for their entire career. I mean, John Calipari left Kentucky. He could have stayed there forever, I guess, but he went somewhere else. So, it's just again, I'm just kind of rambling on about it, but the point is it's just kind of the way it is now, and you just try and do the best with the situation you've got.
We saw during the pandemic, Tom put out some type of video, and because the money situation was getting tight as it was across the country for everybody, and we saw BYU fans really rally to the moment and offer up some money. I'm wondering how much you think this would sort of rally them with the Colin Chandler thing leaving, and we assume there's an opportunity to get some payday there, and obviously Kentucky's a blue blood on a much higher level than 99.9% of the programs, so be it as far as that goes. But I think there's a real competitive streak among BYU boosters and all. And do you think that this would actually, in the long term, can turn out to be a benefit? Because if you weren't donating whatever, you got to jump in the game now.
Well, I hope so. I hope it's a motivation for people. And sometimes you kind of have to go through things like this to realize what it takes to keep guys and be competitive. So I hope it motivates boosters and fans in general. If you really want to be successful, you have to do certain things, and that's the harsh reality of it. And I think BYU will learn that, and they'll have a little more resources. And you do now have boosters with some really good financial backing, and they're willing to, be committed to the school and make it better. And so sometimes you kind of have to go through situations like this, and then you realize, that's what it's going to take to win. And it's going to be the same way in conference play for basketball. I mean, they did pretty well this year, but I think until you go through it, you see, this is how good people are, and this is what it's going to take for us to be successful. So we need to raise our game to be able to be competitive. And it's the same way with, keeping recruits and keeping coaches. I mean, you're now seeing what it's going to take money-wise and resource-wise to be able to keep guys, and it's going to be a challenge. And Mark Pope leaving, I really like Mark Pope. He's a good friend, and I think he's a great coach. But I wasn't so worried about him leaving. I think BYU can get in a good coach, but I worried about what we're seeing now and existing players on the team looking to leave possibly, and the guys like Colin Chandler leaving, because Mark Pope is a guy at one of the best programs in the country that is LDS and can speak to those players, and maybe the best LDS talent coming in the future will say, I have this great opportunity to go to Kentucky, which is awesome, and the coach there will understand my situation. And so now maybe guys that BYU could have gotten, like Colin Chandler, will have another option to go to a place like Kentucky. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot of issues that will go into it. But you're absolutely right. I think if BYU fans are serious about wanting to compete and getting better, and in this new world of college basketball, you have to be willing to step up and raise your level of game, whether it's on the court or in the fundraising or NIL or whatever. BYU will have to raise their expectations and levels of how they do things, or they're going to be left behind.
When you're on the road calling BYU games, you spend a lot of time with Greg Wrubell. I don't know if you ever get to spend much time with Danny Ainge, and if you have you ever heard him talk about Kevin Young?
Well, I love Danny. He's one of my favorite people in the world, and I grew up watching him and hanging out. He played with my brother Devin, and I got to hang out with Danny. He's always been a hero, and he's been incredibly kind to me. I haven't had any specific conversations with Danny about Kevin Young. I think he's an intriguing prospect, an exciting prospect. It's hard for me to believe that any NBA guy that is making money like Kevin Young, one of the top paid assistants in the league, would want to go to college at this point. I mean, it seems like guys are almost fleeing college to go to the NBA, where you don't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. But if he did choose to come to BYU, that would mean that he was a guy that was really committed to wanting to be successful at BYU, and that would be very exciting for me. So I haven't talked with Danny about Kevin, but I think he's a really intriguing prospect. And if that could possibly happen for BYU, I'd be thrilled about it. I just don't know if guys like Alex Jensen or Kevin Young, living that NBA lifestyle and making really good money, would want to put up with the headaches of going to be a coach in college basketball. But maybe that's kind of his career path and what he wants to do. And I'd be thrilled if that were the case.
I agree with you that this is a dark day right now, but I can also make the case and get your opinion on it that BYU is in the best shape that it's ever been to rebound from a dark day. Well,
I'm not. I'm always positive and hopeful about the future, and I think some of these players that have gone into the portal will come back to BYU once a coach is known and they can make their case to these guys. And you still have a nice core there and some recruits coming in, and it's not the end of the world. But I think part of the problem was, you had a pretty successful season last year. You had your coach back. You had some exciting recruits coming in. You were getting ranked in the top 20 in all these really early preseason polls. So you just kind of had settled into a really nice spot, and now everything is turned on its head. That's not to say in a month or two from now things can have settled and you're actually in a pretty good spot going forward. But it's hard to see that far down the road when right now every time you open up Twitter or X or whatever, someone else is in the portal or something else bad has happened. So it's just one punch after another right now. But BYU will find their legs and start throwing some punches back the other way. But I think it has to happen quickly. You need to get a good coach in here that you're confident with and let him hit the ground running and start to kind of reverse the negative momentum that seems to be out there right now for you.
I assume you know the candidates who are local, but there are several candidates here who aren't. Have you ever crossed paths with them? Can you enlighten us about any of them? Somebody like Barrett Peary?
Love Barrett Peary. He's a contemporary of mine. He played at Payson High School. He's the same age as me, and even though they went, I think, 0-for-8 against Provo High while I was there, I still think a lot of Barrett Peary. And we would play in the summers a lot, and he did a great job. He's done a great job wherever he's gone. Super smart. I think would be a young, driven guy ready to prove himself. I love Barrett Peary. I'd be thrilled about Barrett Peary. Quincy Lewis, same way. Best high school coach ever in the history of the state of Utah, which I don't say lightly, and is also a contemporary of mine. And so I think those guys are great options. I think Chris Burgess is a fantastic option. And when he was at BYU, every time I'd look at him, DJ, I'd say, that's a head coach, man. He just looks like a head coach. This guy, he's a head coach. And he will be. And I think he'd be a great pick for BYU. I love Cody Feger. He's one of my favorite guys in the world. I think he would be an amazing choice. I don't know if BYU's willing to hire not an LDS guy at this point, but I love Cody Feger. So, I mean, those are kind of going down the list of the guys that I've heard names about, and I'd be thrilled with any of those. But, yeah, Barrett Peary's a tremendous young coach, and I think be very innovative and do some really neat things. But I would be pleased with any of those four that I just mentioned.
Well, time will tell who it will be, and given the pressure of the transfer portal, I expect time will tell more quickly. Mark, we appreciate you as always, even if you encouraged PK to sing, and we can't really forgive you for it.
I understand.
Did you just snort a little bit?
You guys got a musical ear.
I may have snorted, but that's the only reaction to PK singing that is appropriate. So,
okay. All right.
Hey, I love you guys, man. Thanks for all you do, and you put together an amazing show every day. And I know how much work that is. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all you do for Utah sports.
Thanks, Mark. We appreciate it. Mark Durant, former BYU basketball player, now BYU basketball radio analyst. And he likes your singing. We found somebody.
He's got the ear.
Yeah, tin ear.
No, you got the
His
ear.
only flaw. Nobody's perfect.
Except a perfect stranger.
Ayo.
Oh, yeah.
You're singing to your own karaoke. People.
I was a little crazier in my younger days.
DJ PK, when we come back, everything you missed in this show. Wide receivers making news. More, of course, on the coaching search. And the Olympic roster is set. Oh, it's star-studded. We'll get to that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It's time for 9 a.m. Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown in Sandy.
Sandy, yeah.
Coming up in 90 minutes, Danny Ainge talks to the media. We've got a question up on our Facebook page. He's scheduled to speak today. What can he say to give you hope? And mostly that was just met by backlash, by people frustrated with 2 years of the rebuild. But if they don't make a trade for a veteran, then it's going to be a long rebuild, and the grade of the rebuild has to be pushed down the road until the 19-year-olds turn, I don't know, 24, 26, whatever.
I was thinking 23. I think 4 years in the league.
You'll see where they're going, even if they're not there yet?
I think you'll have a really good idea. If you don't, by 4 years, something's wrong.
Oh, you can know if they're going nowhere by 4 years, that's for sure.
I'd agree with that.
But there are 19-year-olds who at 23 look really good, but don't really break through and win at the level you want until 26, 27.
Well, yeah, okay, but
still, you knew LeBron
you're
at 23.
Talking about don't
they
go
got
with
it
him.
right.
Don't go with him, though. You knew him at 16.
SGA. He's right now the role model everybody's looking at.
You'll know if you got a player by 4 years in the league. I think we have to look at it a little differently. We have to look at tenure in the league, not age. Because the league obviously has trended so much younger. So if you don't know by 4 years, something really is wrong. I think they will know by
Look
then.
at the Dante Exum story. He's come back and been a better player, but not a dominant player.
Right, he's okay.
Yeah.
But
he's a role player in Dallas.
Yeah, he's way down the list of the reasons why Dallas is winning. It's nice to see. A lot of his deal was injury, too, though.
Yep.
So he couldn't really show what he was capable of, and maybe he wouldn't have shown what he was capable of. But even like...
But 2 years lost to injury.
Yeah, I mean, that's a significant blow. And good for him that he's found a role in the NBA.
We'll find out what Danny Ainge has to say. You got any questions you want to ask at 11 o'clock?
Just the one thing I want to know is, why didn't you go all in on losing? Why do you wait until essentially half the season is over? What is the number one reason? And they may have a very, very good answer for that. But why did you wait both years?
I gave you one once upon a time. I don't know if it's true. It was that they put a price on the veterans that they wanted to move, and until they got a offer that met it, they didn't want to.
Okay, but is that helping or hurting?
That's another excellent follow-up question. Excellent follow-up question.
And I'm not looking to second guess because I don't know the answers to that. I just want to know. I mean, I don't really care what your Will Hardy quip lines are. Well, don't work on 20 things, work on one or two. I want you to do everything but make buckets. Those are nice lines. I'm not really interested in that. They're going to lay out plans for these guys to go to work, and then it's up to them to do it. I mean, so I don't really know that. I don't really care that I want them to shoot 500 jump shots, whatever it is. I want to know, what's the philosophical foundation of what you're doing? And would it have? And it may not have made any difference. They may have. Just because you have the 7th pick versus the 10th pick doesn't mean you get a better player.
But it would have altered the odds. I mean, if they had the 7th pick instead of the 9th pick last year, I don't think we're talking about Taylor Hendricks. We saw the list. He was 9th on the list. If they did 7th, it would have been a different player.
Okay, but maybe they could have changed the list, though. But then, all that, I want to know the philosophical reasoning behind doing what you're doing. And don't look up who was drafted 7th.
I'm not.
Good. So going forward there, what is your reasoning? And do you anticipate, because if you keep Clarkson, then you're going to do another thing. You're going to do the same thing at the trade deadline next year? What's the point? Get rid of him now, even if you don't get as much. And then the other thing is, but I don't know you're going to get answers. The other question is, what are you going to do with Markkanen? I mean, I asked Dennis Lindsay about Derek Favors. Oh, yeah, we really want him. Well, you got rid of him. You just said it.
Do you want to extend Markkanen?
But see, they're gonna ham and egg that. They're not going to give you a real response. Probably nor should they. But I think it's a reasonable question on the foundation of where this thing is going and why you're doing what you're doing. I think are legitimate questions that they can answer without giving up inside secrets. Because I'm not asking them to give up inside secrets.
The risk, I guess, with those questions is they'll kind of give you the answer we read earlier that ended blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's up to them. You can't control what they answer. You can only control what you ask.
Right. But we usually try to ask questions we have a reasonable chance of getting a good answer to.
Yeah, and not just general stuff. What'd you think of the season? You know,
it was great.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Somebody will ask that.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what I want.
That's coming up at 11 o'clock today.
I assume we'll carry it.
I don't know if we'll be able to carry it live or if it'll be replayed.
Why the hell not? We're the flagship.
Well, you could say that about a lot of things, PK.
Well, I'm saying it about this.
Yeah. I'd like to think we carry it live. Yak, do you know if we're going to carry the 11 o'clock Danny Ainge live? Have you heard?
He has not. He's not even heard you.
He hasn't.
But it's pointless to get in touch, to talk to him after 9 o'clock because those people come in
and distract because
right,
they're more important than our show.
Right.
Yock shrugs. Yeah, that's true. You heard that part.
Well, it's a fact.
Yep. We see it day after day. All right, Danny Ainge at 11. Will Hardy's talking at noon, and then at 12:20, Colin Sexton. Although I think they're holding the Colin Sexton until tomorrow for reasons that aren't clear to me. They're holding all the player stuff until Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Yep, that's
why.
Embargo.
The season was over Sunday at 4, but okay.
He's not wrong, PK.
Well, they don't send me any information. I'm like dead to them. I'm like
you're not the only one they've tried to cut out.
We're gonna carry obviously those two live. Here on
that's
the
what we were asking.
It wasn't obvious to us, but we're glad to know.
Yeah, so those two are going live. But yes, all the player audio for whatever reason is under embargo until tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And suppose we ran it, what would they do?
Not invite us to media day.
Because when you think about it, embargo spelled backwards.
Yeah, I like that.
I almost said something I shouldn't have said.
You know what embargo spelled backwards is?
Grab me.
Yeah, so what are they going to do? They going to grab us?
Yep.
I say run with it. So what the websites, I don't want to call them newspapers anymore because they're not. They can't print Colin Chandler's things until 9 a.m. tomorrow?
Colin Chandler?
Or Colin Sexton?
Colin Sexton. Right.
You mean you got an exclusive Colin Chandler we can run?
I don't, but he's on my mind. It's a logical mistake, and you two can do what to yourselves if you think that was that big of a deal?
Pat yourselves on the back? Is that what you're thinking? We have spent a lot of time talking about the BYU coaching search this morning.
I apologize for being so engrossed in a topic that has consumed my life.
There it is.
And even my family has taken a back seat. If that
solid
you
3
find
hours
humor, so be it.
Solid 3 hours. I'm about to find more. Solid 3 hours yesterday on it.
11:30 still going. I couldn't get to sleep. I had to play the ocean sounds to help me.
Your brain was going.
Yeah.
Kevin Young, not a name that was really at the forefront yesterday. I mean, we certainly heard it, but because he's on the pro track, I don't think anyone really took it that seriously. But then you heard stuff yesterday, and now you take it very seriously.
I do.
Whether he wants to leave that professional track he's on and go coach a college team, I guess we'll find out shortly. It's complicated, though. The Suns are in the playoffs. And he was on the previous coaching staff, wanted the head coaching job, didn't get it, but was held over as the assistant and was well compensated. And now does he take the job? Let's say he meets with people today and he takes the job Thursday or Friday, because we have heard that BYU was really intent on trying to get this sewn up this week.
I think he met with people yesterday.
So does he want to bail out before the Suns start the playoffs on Saturday against Minnesota?
They'll have to figure that all out.
Yep.
That remains to be seen. But I'm hearing they met with him yesterday. They're going to pay him if he takes the gig in the $3 million range, which would be $1 million. So they're going to make him an offer. They're not just going to blowball him and say, "Come to BYU." Is this guy what?
That won't work.
Yeah.
He's got options.
What do you got for
me? Got a really good option.
Yeah, and BYU knows that.
And he's not just an assistant coach. He's applying and has been. He's not getting the Nets job, but he was a finalist for the Nets job. And
well,
then
you knock on the door a
Charlotte.
bunch, you're going to get it.
Right.
And so here's an opportunity to be a Division I coach in the Big 12, and they're going to pay you, give you $1 million plus raise, probably a 5-year deal, and away you go. Yeah, I can see it. And if not, they've got a fallback. I think they're in a good spot as far as hiring a head coach, whoever it ends up being. And now I'd bet Kevin Young.
Kevin Young, Chris Burgess, Barrett Peary.
Yeah.
Who will it be? If Young doesn't take it, how quickly does he not take it and they move on to the next guy? And then how quickly does that candidate say yes? And how many more players will be in the portal by then? Yeah. You would think they'd say yes right away.
I would give them 7 seconds. I mean, they would have a lawyer check out the contract and all, and what's this clause, what's that clause. So but maybe not literally, but they would most desperately want the job because they've been assistant coaches. In the case of Barrett, he's been a head coach for a bit over there at Portland State, and this is a Big 12, man. That says something. Says enough to me.
WNBA draft last night. Former Utah star Alyssa Pili went 8th to Minnesota. Obviously, the number 1 pick, Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark. And now they will head off to their seasons pretty quickly here. And the U.S. Olympic team is mostly set. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid. Big names. Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Bam Adebayo, as long as Tyrese Halliburton all expected to be on the team. That leaves one spot open for Grant Hill and Steve Kerr to use later. And Steve Kerr got a contract extension.
Yeah, it said 2 years.
2 more years.
Yeah, well, I want the U.S. team to win.
Well, that looks like a team that ought to win. I mean, they got most of the best players, and they've still got a spot. They had somebody else, and that's a team loaded with talent right there.
Yeah, I wonder if a guy like Mitchell would get a look. I think he's worthy of it.
College football, we didn't have a lot today, but the spring transfer portal, the portal window opens today and remains open until April 30th. So by tomorrow, we have quite the collection of people coming and going. See what guys have decided to do here at the end of spring football. DJ and PK, we're going to take a break. When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We got people who can't keep up with the story, PK.
What?
Question of the morning, who do you want to coach BYU basketball? We got a guy sitting in Mad Dog. He was out like 20 minutes after Kentucky made it official.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
CDH kicker at Webski 8 says Alex Jensen. A Utah guy on a pro track. It seems like a jump to BYU. Unlikely.
I think Alex has let them know he's not interested.
Tony, are they going to have any players left to coach?
Yes. They may not be good, but yes.
Not the best players, but some players?
Well, let's see. I mean, we thought, wow, Utah State, man.
They got no chance.
Dead.
Yeah.
And they have one of the best seasons they've had.
Fourth coach in 7 years. You're going to have to lower your expectations or win an NCAA tournament game for the first time in more than 2 decades.
And so Sprinkle brings a couple of guys from the Montanas with him, I should say. So bring Booker and Durant.
There it is.
Durant's got 3 years eligibility.
Perfect.
And I doubt Booker played all 4.
Booker's out after 1, I think.
Yeah,
you can't complain that he's made millions. He's not alone in college basketball these days.
Right. And the NCAA is granting everybody eligibility.
Just give him a waiver. Give him a waiver on that NCAA clock, and he's good to go.
They're granting every other waiver. Why not?
Hey, Kevin, you want to win a championship?
The only reason he wouldn't do it is because Texas used to be in the Big 12.
Almost an excellent point somehow.
Story of my life.
Lane says, I wanted Burgess, but losing Chandler, I don't know if it matters as far as keeping players and recruits. Not in this day of NIL. That was what you were talking about earlier this morning with Mark Durant. Got to step up with the NIL.
Well, the salary I'm hearing for Young potentially in the $3 million range has been texted to me this morning. That means they're in the ball game to win, and so I think they'll rally. I think stuff that is good will come from this. For sure. You're going to have to give it some time. This program has too much going for it to be just delivered a bunch of body blows that they can't recover from, because they've had a couple of body blows. There's no doubt about it. It remains to be seen what happens with the other dudes too. Do they come back? Because if you bring in a Kevin Young, you say, I know how to get you to the NBA. I've been coaching the NBA for years.
Always a great pitch.
Yeah.
You need the NIL to go with it, but it's still a great pitch. I can get you to the league. I know exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah. You want me to get you on the phone with this guy, and this guy? Hold on a second. Right?
Yes, he'll be able to do that.
Sell what you got.
You can work out with Kevin Durant in the summer.
Cool.
Work out with Devin Booker in the summer.
Yeah.
I know guys.
Right.
They'll be in Arizona. No, they won't. They'll be in L.A. They won't be in Arizona in the summer.
Well, I mean, if you're in a gym, what difference does it make? These guys, to me, the Dan Hawkins thing, you get a little time off, but this is a job, especially now when you're getting paid for these college kids. Boy, Hawkins his head would explode now, given the fact that they're getting paid.
It's Division I football! It's the Big 12! It ain't intramurals! You got 2 weeks after finals, you got a week in July 4th, and you got a week before camp starts. That's a month! That's probably more vacation than you guys get. And we're a little bummed out that we don't get 3 weeks? Go play intramurals, brother. Go play intramurals.
It's only flag football, though.
Want to hit people.
Well, that statement resonates more than ever. If you're paying these guys, and I've had administrators tell me, get your butt to the interview room, man. You're getting paid now. That they've told them.
I think one of the huge limitations in NIL is that a lot of the people who have the money don't know the athletes. If they did and if they liked them, they'd be more willing to pay more money. So don't hide your athletes. Run them out there. Let them go. And let them know this is how it works. If you want people to pay you, they have to know who you are. Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of money endorsements, and Patrick Mahomes does a lot of media. That guy goes out to podiums, stands in front of microphones. I bet he didn't like all the questions.
Well, quarterbacks have to do it.
Yep.
That was what's great about John Beck. He didn't ask if he was needed. He just stayed every day and made sure
part of the deal
that anybody who had a question, he was there because he knew that was part of the gig. He wasn't getting paid for it, but he knew that that's what the leader did, and that's what he did every single practice. He stood around and made sure the usual guys that he saw every day, you good, you good, you good, and then he would leave.
Danny Ainge scheduled to speak with the media. What can he say to give you hope? John says by playing the rookies as much as we did, we saw a lot of advancement and growth. A couple nice draft picks and some trades in our draft picks. We should have a much better team next year and in the future. That's what he wants Danny Ainge to say.
I'm not sure about the trades involving the picks.
Think they're going to use all the picks?
There'll be roster movement. Right now, I'd say yes.
For this year or for all four?
Well, I'm speaking this year.
Oh, okay. Well, they certainly could use them this year, because on the surface it's easy to say, well, if you have 3 last year and you have 3 this year, do you really need 6 rookies? Usually the answer is no, but given how the roster is built and the churn they're going through now, I don't see why not.
Well, plus, especially if they're going to ship 2 off to the Stars for half the season.
Yep. Devon wants him to say, trust me, I have a plan. It worked in Boston and it can work here. That's what he wants Ainge to say.
Well, I don't think he has to say that. I think it's understood that they've got the plan and they're going to carry it out.
DJ PK, we are out of time. Danny Ainge's press conference coming up at 11 o'clock. Yuck says you'll be able to hear it right here on The Zone, 11 a.m. Jake and Ben next. Stay with us.